Alrighty, let's get into it. So, I think that the main thing was you were kind of saying that I had was it like a not really full view or understanding of kind of what the Talmud's goal was or the way in which it is used amongst like Judaism.
Yeah, you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what the Talmud actually is, its purpose, how it is used, for what purpose, and how it exists towards Jews, and particularly Orthodox Jews.
Okay.
Since since the secular Jews, when I say secular Jews, I mean people who are not Jews,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. They are genetically Jewish, which means nothing to me, and which means nothing to anyone except to them because they appear to be Jewish supremacists. They believe that they seem to believe, at least, logically speaking, it would lead us to conclude that they believe because they have a Jewish blood, therefore they are Jewish. They have nothing else that connects them to the religion.
Mm-hmm.
So that by definition is a blood supremacy ideology. If you're not going to be connected to the religion, then you are by definition, and you bring up the fact that you're Jewish in a positive manner, and not actually not. I misspoke, not necessarily a positive manner, but in a way that, okay, you deserve this, that, or the other, or you're not allowed to criticize me, means that, okay, so by blood you think that you are above. So these people seem to be Jewish supremacists. They do not adhere to the law of Moses. They do not adhere. So therefore, these people have no connection to Judaism, ironically enough. So those people have no connection to the Talmud whatsoever. I ask anyone who wants to say that these people do have a connection to Judaism. When is the last time you saw Alex Soros, Joros Soros, Larry Fink, any, you name it, with a Talmud in their hand, ever quoted a Talmudic verse, ever said anything about the Talmud,
Mm-hmm.
ever? I know. Well, Bibi Netanyahu said, yeah, that's called paying lip service to the Orthodox. That's what that is called. Politicians do that all the time. Congratulations, you figured out how politics work. So,
And
Bibi Netanyahu.
just so I have an understanding, just so I know, because I'm not to like full disclosure, I'm not very well read on the different like distinctions or divinations of Judaism. So you're saying that ethnic Jews, you think that completely has nothing to do with Judaism in and of itself, and that what makes you a Jew is your faith and not your ethnic descent.
Not necessarily. Okay, so you use the word faith, and that is in regards to Christianity. Faith is the most important part. In Judaism, it's also it practice as much as faith is it's an equal playing field on both sides. So you need as much practice as faith. It's not enough. Okay, I believe in God. No, you actually have to live it constantly. So in Christianity, I know there's also practice in Christianity. I'm not trying to subvert. I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
that in Judaism, there's a lot more practice. There's a lot more. There's 630 commandments, about 250 or so that can be done actually physically right now, since most of those commandments are in regards to the temple. Temple doesn't exist, so you can't
Mm-hmm.
do those. So, but if the temple were to exist, you'd be obligated by 613 commandments to do. So Christianity doesn't have 613 anyway. So that's why I say that Judaism is much more oriented towards practice as much as faith. You need to believe, but you also need to practice.
Right.
Now, so my point here being that those are secular Jews, zero connection to Judaism. Then you have the
Okay.
conservative Jews. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about their Judaism is conservative, but it's not really conservative because they miss a lot. And Reform Jews who basically are the worst of the worst heretics and blasphemers I've ever seen. They don't believe in the coming of the Messiah. They don't believe that there will be a third temple. They don't believe that we need to go do anything. That's why they call their synagogues temples.
Mm-hmm.
Orthodox Jews call their synagogues synagogues. Reform Jews call their synagogues temples because we don't need a third temple, according to them, and multiple other things. So they are the worst of worst blasphemers, heretics, and so on and so forth, so forth. So they also largely reject certain parts of the Bible because in the Bible, in the book, I don't remember which one, but in the prophets, you see clearly it says that there will be an uprising of the dead in the time of the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a time of the Messiah. They don't believe that. So they're clearly just throwing out stuff of the Bible. So the Reformed Jews, not really that much Jewish. They fast Yom Kippur. Congratulations, I guess. They eat gefilte fish. Good for you. I mean, it's It's a disgusting food, but good for you, I guess. But the point here being that those people, again, also don't follow the Talmud as it should be. Maybe they have one or two things that they follow, but that's about it. The only people who follow actually the Talmud are the Orthodox Jews.
Okay.
And last time I checked, Larry Fink is not an Orthodox Jew. Last time I checked, the Orthodox Jews are not really in control of the world. Last time I checked, if you want to make the point that while all these people, the elite, George Soros, etc., are Jews, I'm like, well, what makes them Jewish? What exactly makes them Jewish? Because last time I checked, George Soros is not a big fan of Israel. Last time I checked,
No,
George
he's
Soros
not.
does not, believe in God. If anything, you know what? I'm not gonna say that because I don't want to get you in trouble. But
You say
he is a
whatever you
Nazi.
want, brother. I say whatever I want. You're good, bro.
Okay, fine. It would have been better if George Soros died in the Holocaust. I mean, at least it's been better for his eternal soul. Look, and this comes from an Orthodox Jew, and
Oh
I've heard,
man.
yeah, no, but listen to this, and this makes total, complete, and utter sense.
Mhm.
He's a horrible, disgusting, evil person. He got his money. You know how he got his money? By betting against currencies so
Yep.
they collapse, causing other people immense suffering. That
He
is
built his wealth upon the suffering of millions of
of
people.
others. Of others. Like, that's the quintessential evil billionaire, dear
Yeah.
leftists. Dear leftists, the guy who's funding all of you is the quintessential evil billionaire that you all hate, but yet you don't want to criticize Georgie. So George Soros, it would have been better if
Because
he
they're
did
on his
die.
payroll. That's why.
Yes, it would have been better if he died in the Holocaust. Simple reason that wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have sold American stock during after 9/11, stealing money from grandmas and grandpas and good
Unbelievable, man.
hardworking Americans. He wouldn't have done that. He would have died an innocent child, and he would have been in heaven if he died during the Holocaust. And by the way, anyone who has a problem with me, remember he's a Nazi collaborator. If you have a problem with me saying that George Soros would have been better if he died in the Holocaust, okay. Well, if you want to take the side of the Nazi collaborator, I don't know what to tell you, because he's a literal Nazi collaborator. And the last time he was asked about if he feels bad about what he did, you know what he said? He said that he does not feel any
He doesn't
remorse.
feel shit.
So I'm like, am I not allowed to shit?
He's so evil, man. He functions essentially as just an extension of the Democratic propaganda arm to just funnel illegal brown people into America and into Europe, to destabilize it, to just cause so many issues amongst a civil and free society. He is an evil, deprived human being that I don't even feel like functionally has a conscience.
Evil,
It's
depraved human being, absolutely. And everything that he touches, everything that he's done is just caused more suffering and death and destruction. So I'm like, at this point, it would have been better if he did die in the Holocaust. And I'm never taking that back, by the way. There's nothing that you can convince me. Look, the worst thing you could be nowadays is a Nazi. So if you want to take the side of the Nazi, then go ahead and do that, for the leftists.
And what's crazy is that the left loves screaming Nazi, 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 Nazi. But what Nazi meant was National Socialist. That's literally how that
Well,
term came to be.
yeah, yes, but I feel like this is the shit ideology of the conservative side, that we say, oh no, the Nazis were actually liberals. No, they were not. They were social conservatives and economic leftists. But you know what made the Nazis Nazis? That they were spiritual Gnostics. They had a Gnostic ideology that they figured out how the world works. There's very fascinating propaganda in regards to this, where the Nazis blame the Jew for creating socialism and also for being the capitalist that loves money. And these posters, it's much more intricate than people think. They think, okay, it's just a Nazi poster with a hook-nosed Jew that loves money. No, it actually, the colors tell you a whole bunch of things. The Jew would be stereotypically colored in purple or green to symbolize sickness. And there's so much more. But the
Like
point
the
was
black and
that
white posters, they were actually purple and green.
I mean, the Nazi propaganda posters, they would make the Jew to be either green or purple
Oh, okay.
to
What, to
poison.
look like a
And
goblin or something? What is that?
yeah, they would make it, yeah, kinda, but instead of having a normal skin color, it would be a greenish color.
Mm.
And the woman, the Jew would want to rape the woman. That is, in their propaganda posters, that's what they would do. The woman would be, I think, in red or something. It had a whole bunch of symbolization, but it's incredibly spiritual. Hitler himself, incredibly pagan. He did pay lip service to Christianity, but it was nothing more than him just trying to get
It
Christians
was
on
just,
board.
yeah, it was like he was
Catholics hated him.
virtue signaling to try and water down what he was actually doing. It's just political games.
In Mein Kampf, he called Christianity a Jewish psyop, more or less. And what's his name? Goebbels also hated Christianity as well. There are two quotes I have actually in my camera roll because I have these people who try to say stuff, and I'm like, here's what he had to say about your Christianity, your Catholics. And by the way, the Catholics voted against him. If you look at the electoral maps in Christianity, sorry, in Germany, you see that the lower parts of Germany, where it was heavily Catholic fortified, populated, they voted against Hitler. Meanwhile, the Protestant areas more or less voted for Hitler. So there's a lot there going on in regards to saying that Catholicism and Christianity really works. And let's be real, there has been a lot of Catholics recently with the rise of the new right
Hmm.
that have been they've been pulled towards that kind of ideology with Hitler and this Hitler worship. And I'm like, he's a pagan. He is a pedophile, largely speaking. He is a so I'm having a hard time trying to normalize this guy, by their own standards. You don't like Jews, okay, I get that. I mean, I understand the concept, but you fail by your own standard. That's basically what I always do, more or less, even with the leftists. But yeah, in regards, so again, to the main point, we got here because I kind of have a hard time when conservatives say, no, actually, he was a leftist. He was a liberal. No, he wasn't. He was leftist on on economic policy, government control, blah, 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 the rest of that. And
Hmm.
then ultra conservative on the on social life. But
Well,
also,
you just
by
said
the
that
way,
he was, but okay, so was he liberal in government as far as like totalitarian control?
he wasn't liberal. He was leftist. The big
Okay.
difference between leftist, but he was leftist in his economic
Hmm.
policy, a large government control, which, by the way, a large amount of it actually worked. He did get them out of a lot of debt. He did get them out of hyperinflation. So Hitler did have some things that he knew how to fix certain things. He was he knew how to fix certain things. That's undeniable. But
He was
that's
also a
the
psychopath that murdered people indiscriminately.
yeah. Then you have also that. But yeah, there you have that. The But he was not a liberal by any stretch of the imagination. He was a leftist on economics and a conservative on a new, I guess you could say a neoconservative, not neocon, but a new conservative. He had a new idea of what conservatism should be, uh, which was heavily Gnostic, heavily
He was
occult,
functionally pretty white supremacist as well.
pagan. Yeah, and he was a racist, not a nationalist. People say that he was a nationalist. He was not a
Hmm.
nationalist.
Yeah,
Here's a I can show you my proof. For all the people who hate nationalism, I find that you all are screaming free Palestine.
literally,
Palestine,
it's ridiculous.
oh,
Palestine
Palestine
doesn't
is
even exist. It's not even a real place.
not for the nation. Palestine is a nation, and you're saying this. So you're screaming you're pro Palestine, so you're pro nationalism.
Exactly.
So I'm
Completely
like,
contradicts itself.
so you are pro-nationalist. Furthermore, you also have the Soviets were nationalists, the Americans were nationalists, the French were nationalists, the Italians, everyone was nationalist. So nationalism defeated nationalism, except Hitler was not a nationalist. He was a racialist. How do we know this? Very simple. He was, he tried to,
He was trying to
when,
euthanize all non-white people, essentially.
but, but no, beyond that, he did not believe in Austrian sovereignty. He wants Austria to become part of Germany.
Yes.
If you're a nationalist, then you would say, as American nationalists say, we want Great Britain to be Great Britain. We want Japan to be Japan. We want America to be America. And he would have said, in that case, that we want Germany to be Germany and Austria to be Austria because it's its own nation. But no, Austria is its own nation, but it's not its own racial group. It's Germanic by essence. So he saw Austria and Germany as one country because it's Germanic. He wanted to what's it called again? Unite all the Germanic states, all the Germanic territory, and that included parts of Poland and certain parts of France, and so on and so forth.
So he
So he
just
wanted,
functioned as a Germanic supremacist.
yes. So he
Okay.
was a racialist, he was not a nationalist.
Okay.
But
That makes sense.
nationalism. Anyway, we've gotten to here off track. Let's talk about the Talmud.
Okay. Let's do it.
So
So
the
just to lay the foundation, because I'm pretty much just going to be taught essentially from you. So I was not very well read. So what my understanding was, I got really fed up with people being so irrationally anti-Talmud and then using like random misunderstood quotes as a blanket generalization of this is what Jews think about X. And it's so low IQ and ridiculous. That I was like, if you people are going to be in my comments and spamming me that I'm a good goy because I don't hate Jews for no reason, and you think I'm getting paid $7,000 every freaking post I have, even though I have a full-time job, which is absolutely retarded, it's like, let me do my own investigative research. So I reached out to another Jewish creator, and I asked her, I was like, hey, do you have anything about the Talmud? Because my audience is like, keep telling me that I don't know what I'm defending and I'm some psychopath that like is ignorant to how evil Jewish people are categorically. And I'm like, this is really retarded. So she sent me this like 30-minute video. I reacted to it on stream for like an hour or so. And it was this guy that was taking essentially what he framed the Talmud is, was like the essential text for rabbinic Judaism. So, and he went through it and explained how it's basically ancient Reddit. And it is just over the course of thousands of years, rabbis discussing case law about different ways to implement the God's or the Mosaic law through the Torah and the Tanakh. It's ways to apply those rules in very strange, abstract situations, and that was pretty much the view I had of it. But then when we talked, you were saying that I had a misunderstanding of it. So just so people that are watching know, that's pretty much essentially my understanding of it. So if that's off the mark, I would love to be educated about it.
So you're mostly correct there. So what you would have is you have the Bible, which is the written law, and then you have the oral law, which Christians don't believe in. Which I have here something for you that would show that the oral law is actually in the New Testament. It's been done away with by Paul, mostly Paul, but also by Jesus. Mostly by Paul, but a little bit, but somewhat by Jesus, to say that this is not necessary anymore, because what you would now need is just believe in me and go and sin no more. Basically, that's like the two core things of what I would boil down Christianity is.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in Jesus. That's the number one thing. And then also, you can't just go around sinning.
Exactly.
Go and sin, right? So that's the two things that...
Being saved by grace does not give you a license for licentiousness.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I mean, Christianity is more sophisticated than just that. But if I need to boil it down, that's how I would boil it down. And
Right.
most of the time, and every time I've done so, no Christians have ever raised any objection. So I think this is the correct view to have on this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's fair.
right. So with Jews believe in the oral law, which is a set of laws that would apply to, that would give extra context to the written law. And we can clearly see that there is an oral law, that it's undeniable, and most Christians deny it even exists because they have no concept of it existing, because it was done away with in Christianity. But I can prove it to you in a few steps. First thing, in the Old Testament, you know that before we go to the Old Testament, Jesus is descended from King David, right? That's what, at least that's what Matthew claims through Joseph. Even we're not going to get into we can get into that later if he actually is descended from Joseph, since he's not actually his father, but we can get into that later. Okay, but he's descended from King David, and King David. And that's what qualifies him as the Messiah, right? That he could be a king through the lineage of David, right?
Mm-hmm.
Issue here is King David is descended from, guess who? Ruth, the Moabite, right? If you read your Old Testament, you would know that a Moabite can never, ever, ever become a Jew. In the Old Testament, in the 5 books of Moses, it prohibits any Moabite from ever becoming a Jew. This could be fact-checked right now. If you want to fact-check me, you'll see that it says that Moabites cannot become Jews.
We can do that. Just because I'm sure the chat will probably ask. Let's do that right now.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And okay, sorry. What was the question one more time? Or the framework?
Can a Moabite become a Jew? In the 5 books of Moses, is there a prohibition of Moabites becoming a Jew?
Become a Jew. In the what was it again?
In the 5 books of Moses, That is the Old Testament.
5 books of Moses. No, a Moabite cannot become a Jew, fully integrate with the Israelite community through conversion or marriage, according to the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Here's a clear breakdown. Okay, so the prohibition of it. No Moabites or Moabites shall enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of them shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever, because they did not meet you with bread and water on the way when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam the son of Beor, from Pethor, Mesopotamia, to curse you. You shall not seek their peace or their prosperity all your days forever. Man, that is pretty definitive right there.
Right. So a Moabite cannot become a Jew. Ruth was a Moabite. Ruth became a Jew and gave birth to generations later to David. All right. So there's a problem here. How did David? How is this possible? So this would disprove Christianity just on itself. This would disprove a lot of Judaism as well, but also Christianity, because Christianity relies upon on the Davidic line. And if David can never become a Jew, how can Jesus be? How can there be a Davidic line in the first place? Very simple. The oral law, which Christians vehemently reject, foolishly, the oral law states that the prohibition on Moabites becoming Jews only applied to men, because it was the men's responsibility to go out and meet the Israelites when they came out of Egypt, and they did not. The women had no legal authority nor any legal right to do so.
That was going to be my next follow-up question if you hadn't said that.
So this is the oral law. For Christians who think that the oral law is not necessary, you Christians have zero argument, have never ever came up with a counter argument for how Ruth could become a Jew. That is the only reason for why she became a Jew, how she could become a Jew, and no other reason is necessary. But if Christians then say that the oral law was never ever needed, then you fall into this fallacy. So that's one proof that among many others I can point to where God says how kosher slaughter is supposed to happen. God instructs the Jews that you need to slaughter an animal before you can eat it. He says, and I will show you how, and then doesn't show you how. What's that? Like, you said you're going to show us. Well, the oral law explains how. Wait a minute, I have something else for you.
Okay.
You have it also.
I feel like a Christian, not to interrupt you, sorry, but just to interject in case anybody was curious. I feel like a lot of counter arguments for the whole Moabite thing, and with the descendants of Ruth, or David being a descendant of Ruth, is that Jesus was born through the Immaculate Conception. So it's I feel like a lot of them would kind of view your lens of it as more legalistic than practical. But I mean,
it will still debunk Judaism as well as Christianity, because then it will be inconsistent that Ruth became a Jew. How is that possible? That's a blatant contradiction. I just took it a step further to the lineage, but even if you take out the lineage and you try to loophole your way around it, what will happen is then you still have a contradiction of how Ruth became a Jew in the Old Testament. Furthermore, so then you have tefillin. The phylacteries, if you ever heard of it. Exodus 13:9, and it shall be for you a sign on your arm and a reminder between your eyes, so that the Lord's Torah may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord removed you of Egypt. So what is phylacteries? How is it supposed to look like? How is it supposed to be worn? What is the purpose and all that? Well, the oral law explains exactly how that happens. What is required of you. Then you have, let me see here. You also have, I have this one here. This is a very good one, actually. The prohibition on Jewish people to keep the oral law you have in Nehemiah 10:30-32. The prohibition of purchasing and selling on the Sabbath day.
Okay.
They held with their brethren, their noblemen, and entered the curse and the oath to follow the law of God, which was given through Moses, the servant of God, and to keep and perform all the commandments of the Lord our God, and his ordinances and his statutes, and that we shall... Sorry, I have dyslexia, so it's kind of hard for me.
You're totally good, bro. No worries.
And that we shall not give our daughters to the peoples of the land, and we shall not take their daughters for our sons. And as for the peoples of the land who bring merchandise and all the grains on the Sabbath day, to sell, we shall not purchase from them on the Sabbath or on holy days. And we shall abandon the land during the 7th year, and the loan given by every hand. That is oral law in the Old Testament. Otherwise, because you have no prohibition on buying and selling in the 5 books of Moses, that's where the prohibition would come from, on not being allowed to buy and sell. Finally, I would like, and I have so much more here, but I would also like to show you, for those who continue to reject the oral law as a concept in Judaism before Christianity, I have here a large issue. Where is it? Here it is. And this is New Testament stuff. Okay. All right. So you should be familiar with this, but except you're not going to be familiar with this because it's a foreign concept. Only the oral law explains it. Then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in the seat of Moses.
And what verse is this?
This is Matthew 23, 1-3.
Okay.
For whatever they tell you to observe, that you observe and do, but do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. So this is Jesus saying that the Pharisees sit in the seat of Moses. Mm-hmm. So clearly Jesus is saying that they have the moral authority and the legal authority, except they are hypocrites. So don't do as they do because they're immoral, but do as they say, because what they say is correct, but they don't actually practice what they preach.
Yeah,
that's more or less
hypocrites.
Yeah. So there you go. Jesus is giving the moral authority towards the Pharisees and the scribes. Now here's the interesting part.
This is the book of Matthew.
6th day. Nope, not this one. Not this one.
I think it said Matthew 23.
Says the disciple. Okay, here it is. I found it.
Okay.
Acts 1:1-12 states that the disciples traveled only a Sabbath day's journey. What is a Sabbath day journey?
A day.
Now, what is? Go look that up, because there is zero context of what a Sabbath day journey is anywhere except in the oral law. The oral law.
Just off of just the context clues, I would assume that the duration of a Sabbath day was. That's a weird way to phrase it. Would it just be 24 hours or something?
Oh, it wouldn't be 24 hours. Go look it up. Look it up right now. Look up what is a Sabbath day journey, and you will see that it directly correlates to the oral law.
What is a Sabbath day's journey? And this is Matthew then, so this is pretty definitive for Christians. A Sabbath day's journey in a biblical concept referring to the maximum distance a Jewish person was traditionally allowed to travel on the Sabbath without violating the commandment to rest and refrain from work. Let's see.
And what would that? And that would
the term appears in the New Testament in Acts 1:12, describing the distance of the Mount of Olives to Jerusalem as a Sabbath day's journey. While not explicitly defined in the Torah, it derives from rabbinic interpretations of Exodus 16:29. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day, and Numbers 35:5, which mentions 2,000 cubits as a boundary around Levitical cities. So how long would 2,000 cubits? That's 1.1 kilometers.
The point is not that, but that's not the point here. How long it actually is. The question is what it. And it's a concept found only in the oral law, found right here in the New Testament. So the people writing the New Testament were very familiar with the oral law. So now that we have established, it's indisputable at this point that the oral law is a fundamental part of Judaism before the time of Jesus. Jesus did away with it, and Paul did away with basically all of it. Jesus did away with a large segment of it, but then Paul basically said, okay, you don't need to circumcise, you don't need to do all these other things. You just need to believe and not sin, and sin no more. Mm-hmm. So it's definitive. It is beyond debating. If the oral law is something that the early Christians adhere to, it's clearly in the New Testament, and it's actually multiple places in the New Testament, but that's just one place that you can find a remnant of the oral law. So the oral law exists. Most Christians deny that it exists because it gives Jews nowadays a much more stronger footing against Christianity, and most Christians find themselves, they don't want to debate they don't want to debate that on the merits on its own 2 feet. They want to do away with that because it makes it easier, and it's lazy debating. We can have normal debates on this, but we should acknowledge things that actually exist, and the oral law actually exists, and Christians did adhere to it up until a certain point. All right. So now that we know that the oral law exists, I needed to first facilitate the argument that the oral law is the thing. Otherwise, I will be arguing on nothing here because people will say that the oral law doesn't really exist, but it does exist. All right. So now that we know that it exists, now the rabbis had conversations. It's the Talmud. Now we can go to the Talmud. The Talmud is basically a little stenography of rabbis having debates, arguing over the oral law. Since the oral law was conveyed orally, a lot of them had different conceptions of what it was, how it actually existed, how it actually was formed. So they were constantly having debates and arguments. Contrary to a lot of what a lot of bad actors would say, the Talmud is not a Bible to the Jews. Absolutely not. The Talmud is a conversation upon a conversation on the oral law. So there's the Talmud, then there's the Mishnah, which is Mishnayos. Mishnayos is basically the earlier rabbis having a conversation on the oral law. The Talmud is basically commentary on that conversation. So you have 2 layers here. You have the first rabbis, then you have the second rabbis having a discussion on the oral law, on things that needed to be parsed out a little bit more, the minutia of all that. And most Christians find, oh, why is this necessary? Well, if you're going to deal with law, then it's got to be necessary. But to most Christians, it's not necessary because Jesus did away with all of that. Okay, fine. But those who do not believe in Jesus, they still have to know exactly what and what doesn't count. Therefore, the oral law is completely and totally necessary for Orthodox Jews to adhere, but the Reform and the other ones don't really adhere to it. All right, so what you have there is, because of that, now we can go to the more, the controversial things of the oral law, because here it is. Let's bring this up
So
for
the
you.
oral law, did you need to establish the oral law because that's kind of a piece of the foundation of the Talmudic conversations to begin with?
The Talmud is a conversation upon a conversation of the oral law.
Oh, understood. Okay.
A podcast on the oral law. It's people. They're discussing a discussion on the oral law.
Oh, okay.
So that is what's going on in the Talmud. So now what we have here is this, and this I'm gonna give you my sources. My sources, it's actually their sources because that's what they like bringing up. Is what you will find is certain things being taken out of context or completely misunderstood, either purposely or because people don't know how to read, because the Talmud is a little bit esoteric. It's not too esoteric, but it's a little bit esoteric. You need to have, the Talmud already assumes that you know what's going on. So when Christians go, not knowing a single thing about the oral law, and they judge the Talmud, they're wholly and completely unqualified to be even talking about it because they have no concept of what the oral law is.
First, you need to understand every single freaking Nick Fuentes groiper lover that just Jews, Talmud, they hate Jesus, and it's just so low IQ.
Wait. In regards to the hating Jesus, we're gonna get to that, and this is their source, Jesus in the Talmud. Don't worry, I've read up on this stuff. They don't hold a candle to what I know, and including about their own religion. I outclass and outmatch them every time. It's pathetic, actually. I mean, pathetic that a Christian would not know this. I mean, if as a Christian, you should know these things. And every time I'm underwhelmed.
And I'm really happy that these conversations are coming up. As much as it makes me upset that people are so irrationally painting Jewish people with just the broadest brush imaginable. It's what's cool is that the people that are curious and the people that don't want to just join a bandwagon of hatred because it's popular on the internet. It creates conversations like these that will educate more people to understand what these things actually are. So it's a good thing and it's a double-edged sword like a lot of other things, but I am glad that a lot more people through these sort of social conflicts are getting curious and actually trying to dig deeper on these things.
Yes, but it does bother me that people like Ben Shapiro or so they are in unique positions to talk about these things. They are in a unique position to actually, okay, here's what it actually says, but they don't even want to touch it. And I'm like, people want to know this, all right? And there are a lot of people who used to propagate the message of hate towards the Talmud, and I reached out to them and told them, if you have any questions, I will be willing to answer. They asked me the questions. I give them the context, and they stopped talking about it because they saw that because they're good actors. There are a lot of good actors, a lot of honest people who think this is what it actually says.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a little esoteric, they lack the extra context.
Exactly.
So already assumes that you know what they're talking about. So when you see certain things, you're like, why would it say that? Because it already assumes you know the rest of the story. So they don't need to explain every little intricacy on it. So here's what you will find. So this is what you will find in one of the arguments, one of the things that these people will bring up. Where is it? Sanhedrin 4:7, 7:4. Again, the dyslexia is kicking in. In Sanhedrin, what they would say is this: that it allows for Jews to have sex with 9-year-olds. Here's what it says.
So
Rab said, pederasty with a child below 9 years of age is not deemed as pederasty with a child above that. Rab maintains that only he who is able to engage in sexual intercourse may, as the passive subject of pederasty, throw guilt upon the active offender, whilst he who is unable to engage in sexual intercourse cannot be the passive subject of pederasty in that respect. That is Sanhedrin 54b. So, what you will notice is it doesn't say if one committed sodomy with a child less than 9 years old, no guilt is incurred.
Exactly.
Or is allowed. It does not say any of those things. What it does say is that there are two types of sodomy. One is where you are the initiator. The other one where you are passive. You're the one being initiated upon. The child falls into the category of being initiated upon, since he cannot be the initiator. Which means that, as we know, in the previous, this is the funny thing, that previously in the 53 or 52, Sanhedrin 53, 52, they say that the punishment for homosexual activity is stoning. Yeah. So why would they then give a carve-out for pederasty with a child? It doesn't make any sense.
Because people don't care about what the truth is. Exactly.
So what it says here is this. It's actually very simple. The language is a little bit confusing if you don't have the extra context, but it's actually very simple. It's explaining that if the child is also guilty of initiation, then the child would also be put to death because he's guilty of initiating the pederasty. But he cannot be guilty of initiating since he is not capable of doing so, which means that the only person that can be guilty of initiating is him. So he gets to be stoned by that. But the question is, how many sins has he incurred? He's guilty of only initiating, but not passive. Because if he's guilty of passive, then the child is guilty of active.
Exactly.
So that means, so the Talmud comes along and says that the person is not guilty of passive. It makes no point to say about him being guilty of active because it's so freaking obvious. So it says he's not guilty of passive. The child is not guilty of active. The child is not put to death. He is put to death on being guilty of active. Boom. End of discussion.
And another one that people blindly run with because it gives them an easy way out to paint Jews with a broad brush and say that, they believe in child rape is, I believe it's when it's exclusively a man committing on a young female. It's
this is the one. Yes, I have it right.
Are you about to do the next one? Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so in the Mishnah, so this, as I said, they have the Mishnah and you have the Gemara. The Gemara is commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says here, a girl who is 3 years and 1 day old, whose father arranged her betrothal, is betrothed through intercourse. As the halachic status, halachic means the law, basically. The halachic status of intercourse with her is that of intercourse in all halachic senses. And in the case where the childless husband of a girl 3 years and 1 day old dies, if his brother, the Yavam, that is the status, that is basic, and you'll find this in the Bible, by the way, I'll tell you in a moment, momentarily, engages in intercourse with her, he acquires her as his wife. And if she is married, a man other than her husband is liable for engaging in intercourse with her due to violation of prohibition against intercourse with a married woman. Now, I implore anyone and everyone to find me here exactly where it says is allowed, you may, or is okay, is permissible, you're not punished, or anything like that. What it does say here, a girl who is 3 years and 1 day old, whose father has arranged her betrothal, is betrothed through intercourse. As a matter of fact, it has already happened. That is the course by which one would acquire her. That is the legal status. That is a
Why is someone trying to acquire a 3-year-old?
Why would somebody try to acquire a 3-year-old? That is beyond the question of it actually happening. Beyond them Of course, it would not be allowed, and I'll show you the Talmudic verse where it says actually that it would not be allowed. So you have that. So it clearly in the Talmud it would say you're not allowed. But beyond the question of why would somebody do that, in the case if somebody already did that, they are talking about as a matter of fact somebody has already done that.
Okay.
Legally speaking, she would be married to him. She would be betrothed to him. It would be therefore a sin before he gives her a divorce or a nullification of the marriage happens, she would be bound to him. And therefore, where does it continue? It says
But can't a 3-year-old not consent to marriage in the first place? So how would this even be able to be definitive or set in stone?
Well, in the olden days, no, women were not, I guess, did not have that authority on themselves. It would largely fall on the father to allow or not allow to do that.
I think this is the parts where it gets really murky and people just categorically dismiss everything because they're like, why are we even speaking about the permissibility about a grown man with a 3-year-old?
You see, that's what it's not doing. It's not saying it is okay. It is not by any stretch of the imagination saying it's okay. Just to show you exactly what I'm talking about. This, so you can all look this up. This is Kedushin, that is KIDDUSHIN 41a. All right, so you can look this up, see that I'm not lying about this. The Mishnah teaches a man can betroth his daughter to a man when she is a young woman. The Gemara infers when she is a young woman, yes, when he can betroth her. When she is a minor, no, he cannot betroth her. This statement supports the opinion of, and it continues on. So what it clearly states is that there is a prohibition. You would be in sin. You would be committing a sin, and you would be held liable for child abuse as well as Torah for committing this. But what if somebody has already done that? And as we know, the case is that at any age, and this goes down till 3 years old, any age, the way of acquiring a woman to make her your wife would be through intercourse. That would apply also to a 3-year-old. So, but if somebody were to do that, what were to happen to that person? Well, he would probably be put to death. There would probably be, of course, a nullification of the marriage, or he would be forced to give a divorce, and then he would be punished for what he has done. But nonetheless, he would still be married to her in a legal sense. As a matter of fact, what if he runs away? And nobody catches him in time? Well, now she is bound to him, and she needs to get a nullification. This is their main concern. You can see that the context of this entire thing is, and she is married, a man other than her husband is liable for engaging in intercourse with her due to the violation of the prohibition against intercourse with a married woman. That's the whole context of this. They are not talking here about.
Can you break that part down?
That's the whole context. That they're talking about. She is now bound to him. So she cannot remarry. Otherwise, she would be living in sin.
Until there's a nullification.
Exactly. Okay. That's what the context is. Their concern here is not that, oh, you may do this or it's fine or no, there is no issue here.
They're talking about once the crime's been committed.
Once the crime has been committed, she's now legally bound. So what happened? So because she's legally bound, no man can marry her when she gets older until she's given a nullification or until she is divorced. Okay. That is their concern. It's in the context. They're not saying here that it's totally fine. You can have licentious sex. You can do whatever you wish. You cannot have sex in Judaism. You cannot have sex outside of marriage. So you can see the clear context is what they're afraid of is somebody else marrying her when she is an adult and she was never given a nullification.
So they don't want the person that will want to marry her when she's older to be in sin.
Exactly. That is
okay. That makes so much more sense.
I'm going to read this one more time so you can see the full context of what they're talking about.
Okay.
A girl who is 3 years and 1 day old, whose father arranged her betrothal, is betrothed through intercourse. As a matter of fact, that is how for every woman for everyone who is betrothed, that is the course that you do to acquire her. That's how she is now yours, and now you're bound. I mean, in a happily marriage, you would be bound forever. In a legal marriage, in a good marriage, a marriage where it is 18 above, it would be fine. Mm-hmm. Right? So that would be the case. Is betrothed through intercourse. That, as a matter of fact, it's saying it's okay, you should do this, there's no consequences since you married a child. No, it's saying that is the matter of fact. As the halachic status, that is the status, intercourse with her is that of intercourse in all halachic senses. All right? In all senses, that is the intercourse is the thing that he acquires her. All right, matter of fact, and that
Mm-hmm.
applies also to a 3-year-old. And in the case where the childless husband of a girl 3 years and 1 day old dies, now this is you'll find this in the Bible that two brothers who dwell within one dwelling and the brother dies. One brother dies and he was betrothed to already had a wife, or he was betrothed to one. Now the brother gets that wife. Gets that woman will now be with the brother, and this was a way to make sure that no woman was left homeless. That was basically a way to make sure that no woman was left homeless in in those days.
What if the
Nowadays, it's
brother
not.
chooses not to take the wife, or does he have to?
He is legally obligated. He can. Wait a minute. He is legally obligated, but again, there are ways around this. Basically, if both say we don't want to, then both don't want to. But
Okay.
it's basically saying this, that you would be legally obligated. Now it's upon you. Now you can also decide not to, but you would be legally obligated in order to make sure that she does not go hungry, she does not go unclothed and unfed and without a house. You are now legally obligated to take care of her by becoming her husband. That is what it's saying there,
So
and
does
that is in
it
the
does
Bible.
it have to be her husband within the context of how you think about a husband and wife, or can they just be like roommates essentially?
No, they cannot be roommates. As a matter of fact, it would be strictly prohibited. A man and a woman that are not married cannot live in the same under the same roof. I mean, unless if they're brother and sister, but
Hmm.
that's a story for another day. But you cannot have a strange woman in your house, because then might lead to licentious sex. You
Right.
will have to marry the woman in order to. So that is called yavam. And now you'll find that in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I don't remember exact. I think it's John where they actually talk about this, but I don't recall exactly where it is. But you'll also find this in the New Testament as well. The yavam, that's what it's called, where the husband dies and now she has to marry the brother. Now, what if the husband was a pedo and he engaged with a 3-year-old? Now the 3-year-old is engaged to the other brother. The other brother is like, whoa, I had nothing to do with this. That's exactly what it's talking about here as well. It's saying
Oh,
that
so if you have a brother and your brother was a pedophile that consummated a marriage with a 3-year-old, then
she is now
that no longer befalls upon you, or it does?
she now belongs to him, right? Technically speaking, she would now belong to him, right? But what if he dies? Now she will be betrothed to the other brother, right? By that definition.
Hmm.
And the Talmud is saying the Yavam engages in intercourse with her, he acquires her as his wife. And if she is married to a man other than her husband, is liable. So what if the he dies? Now she is betrothed to her brother. She cannot marry the brother. She shouldn't marry the brother in the first place. But now she cannot. But she cannot either. She cannot marry the brother also, because that again would be having two husbands. So he now has to give her a what's it called again?
Nullification.
A divorce? No, no, nullification happens through the rabbis. So the rabbis will either get together and give a nullification, or he would give her a divorce.
Okay.
So it's all a whole bunch of legalisms here, a whole bunch of legalisms.
So if the man that had then acquired the 3-year-old, if he doesn't give her a divorce and then he continues with intercourse with that 3-year-old, would he get punished?
Obviously, that would
Okay.
obviously be. And in the Talmud as well, by the way, in the Talmud it says that at 18 you should marry. That's
So
the that's
okay.
the
Okay. So well, instead of even having a necessary process for having to issue a divorce, or a rabbinic nullification, why? I mean, I don't know if you probably don't know the answer to this question because you obviously didn't live in that era, but why wouldn't they just completely do away with anything revolving child marriage and just nullify it all and take that out of the law?
well, legally speaking, child marriage would be possible, and this was practiced throughout all cultures. So normally child marriage would be actually 14 years old or older, and that's in the olden days in order to secure alliances and so on and so forth. But
Also, more just political marriages and things like that.
yeah, more or less. So that would be possible. So they wouldn't have really a way of getting rid of the marriage aspect, but then you have the question of the sexual intercourse aspect, in which case again he would be punished. There would be a
Okay.
punishment for him, because that would be child abuse, and that is not allowed. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, here's another thing that most people misunderstand about the Talmud: nothing in the Talmud is wholly complete, because you had in under a Jewish kingdom you had two court systems. You had the rabbinic court, the Sanhedrin. You had the rabbinic legal court. Then you had the king's court, which was legal courts in regards to governmental matters. So you had two court systems. So one was in regards to Judaism, the other one was in regards to legal matters, in regards to government or any excess laws, any extra laws that is not really found in the Talmud because it's not rabbinic laws. So whatever you may want to ask a question about, what about this thing? Why didn't they think of this? Well, the context could be that the rest of it was not included because it was not a rabbinic law. It was a legal, governmental law.
Oh,
Which,
and you can't really control the law of the land unless you're a government official, anyways.
exactly.
Okay.
But that would only fall under a Jewish kingdom such as King David, Saul, etc., etc. But beyond that, there, you know, a lot of the things that you find in the Talmud, there's a lot of missing. There's a lot of missing things that you can find here. But as I said, this is the full context. Again, you will nowhere find here the words "it's permissible," "is allowed," "is okay," or anything like
Mm.
that. What it will say in other places of the Talmud, you are not allowed to. You should marry at 18. You should not marry a child. But if the case is
This is
that
how
is a,
it's handled after.
this is how it is handled exactly.
Mm.
So, and then you go, and if she is impure due to menstruation and so on, that goes to, the older girls. If it go, they talk about a 3-year-old because that's like the minimum age. Anything below that, it would be the nullification would happen automatically. Like it would be literally impossible to marry anyone under 3 years old. Why that would be the case, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to why they did not. Why
Raise
the
it to like 10 or something.
Yeah, I don't know why that isn't the case. I don't know why they decided that 3 years, that's when you have to do this whole shtick, but that's how they did it. Again, not allowing it, but that's how they did it. But anything lower than that wouldn't be allowed. And then then you would have the menstruation. There's a whole bunch of laws regarding menstruation. So she would be legally beholden to those menstruation laws if she is married, right? So that what this is concerned about is the process and the legalism that she would have to now have to do, what he would have to do, what are the necessary steps after that. But as I said, nowhere, and I mean nowhere, does it allow for child marriage anywhere in this area.
The
Now
only
you have
place
another.
I've ever seen it permit the sexual harming of children is in screenshots from Twitter Jew haters.
Yeah, my main question is, find me a Jewish man married to a child.
Right.
Like in Israel, what is the legal age, by the way? And in the United States. Oh, I know the counter argument. Well, what about Left Tahor in Guatemala? It's some Jewish cult. I'm like, yeah, they've been kicked out of literally every single Jewish community everywhere. And by the way, they're incredibly anti-Zionist. But so I find it funny when the anti-Zion, when the pro-Palestine crew take their videos and say, these are the Jews. I mean, no, these are the Jews or your allies, by the way. So, I mean, you're throwing them kind of under the bus here because they're vehement anti-Zionists. But only those people, they do marry very young, with young, mostly. They marry young with young, like 14 with 14. And this is exactly why they've been kicked out of literally every Jewish community
And
everywhere.
it's pretty ironic that Palestine people would have issues with Israelis when Islam literally permits child marriage and child marriage consummation in almost every context imaginable.
Yeah, of course, I can bring that up, but that would be mostly deflection on my part if I say, well, Islam does that. Well, no, we're talking about Judaism, so
Well,
I'm
no,
going to
I'm just
talk about.
saying in principle. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yes, of course. This, like, the amount of Christians that cuck themselves out to Islam is astonishing
It's
to me.
disgusting.
You have this one guy named Warsaw. I don't remember his name. He says that actually he read the Quran and he found out that actually the Quran and Christianity are very similar.
Oh,
I'm like,
hell no, bro.
and I want to slap him across the face to wake him up. I don't want to, no violence. We disavow violence.
Jihad, the unbelievers. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh yes, like it says there, do not take the Jews and the Christians as allies, for they are allies of each other. And I want to slap him across the face, not as violence, but just to wake him up, because literally being asleep at the wheel, dude. He's either bought out or he's just a shill for Islam because these people will stab you in the fucking back, man.
Literally.
But so you have a lot of Christians who are trying to make
Oh,
an alliance with Islam.
and one question before we move on to another point. What a lot of people have voiced out to me as like a way to slander the tangential support that I have for Israel is that there are a lot of pedophiles that get convicted of.
Oh, I know about that.
Yeah, and then they always if they're
Here's the thing.
Jewish from Israel, they always flee there. Why is that?
Yes, but here's the thing. That was actually founded by a Jewish group that brought that to everyone's attention. So everyone was saying, well, the Jews do this. I'm like, this was brought up by a Jewish group. Why would the Jews try to call out their own people if they're allowed to do that, if it's okay to do that? Why would a Jewish group try to say that, hey, this is what's happening? So that was done by a Jewish group who found this out and tried to publicize this. All right. So this Jew is doing the right thing, trying to say that these pedophiles get away. So why that is? It is a huge issue. This is in part why I am an anti-Zionist as well. But this is a huge issue. This is a huge issue. Then why can't we get back our American pedophiles who happen to be Israeli as well, who have an Israeli passport? Go figure how that could be a case. I don't think anyone should have two passports. But the point here is that why can't they escape? I've heard one argument for it, and there's no way excusing it, but it is just clarifying it, that this is not just the case with Israel. I guess it's the most prolific with Israel, but it also happens to be that anyone with two passports, they also escape to their home country, and then their home country, most of the time, doesn't want to give them up. So Israel just plays the biggest role in it. But there's no defense of it. This is just a way of saying we should drop some troops into Israel and get those people back and put them to death here in the United States because they definitely deserve it.
If you rape a child and then you flee to Israel because you have a passport and you somehow can't get prosecuted under the same law over there, that's disgusting.
Our strongest ally should definitely allow us to retrieve them. I feel like they should, but they don't because because Israeli sovereignty is incredibly important, but American sovereignty is not incredibly.
Well, then why do they not just persecute them then? Why don't they transfer the crimes even though it wasn't committed in the same country? If you know how wrong it is and you know the reason why they're fleeing here in the first place, why would you not then take it upon yourself to do the right thing and persecute that person or prosecute them?
I don't know the answer. Good question. I'm like, Israeli government, you're not beating the allegations. I'm like,
no, they're not beating the allegations.
You're not beating the allegations.
No, they're not, bro.
But again, the Israeli government is not a religious institute. It is not religious in any capacity. Of course, Netanyahu has paid lip service to the Talmud. Oh, we believe in that. No, you don't. You violate the Shabbos on a daily fucking basis. Your entire government operates on violation of the Shabbos, Yom Kippur, every major Jewish holiday. Like this entire.
They have pride parades in downtown Tel Aviv.
Exactly, the gayest city in the entire world. I'm sorry,
the gayest city in the entire world. What do you mean?
As far as I know, Tel Aviv is the gayest city in the entire world. As far as I know,
like the highest population of homosexuals.
As far as I know, that's what I've heard. I haven't bothered to fact check it because it doesn't bother me if it's true or if it's not true. It's like it's inconsequential. They have these pride parades. Doesn't matter if they are or aren't. The fact, maybe the Pakistanis.
The fact is, it's still blasphemous.
I think the Pakistanis actually may be more gay because they consume the most gay porn. That is actually correct. The Pakistanis do consume the most gay porn. Actually, so they may just be more gay. I don't know, but actually, to be fair, all porn is cock porn, so it by definition would make you gay. So I guess whoever consumes the most porn is by definition the gayest, I guess. But the main point here is that the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, definitely does not live by the laws of Moses by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely not.
They do not adhere to any Judaic principles whatsoever. They're not Jewish by any stretch. So what you have here is this was. You know what? First, I'm going to finish on the Talmud, then we're going to get to the anti-Zionist situation.
Because I'm really curious.
So I have here a whole bunch of things. Actually, I'm going to go through these very fast, and then another thing that I would like to get to. And this basically, these memes that go around saying that list all these things. I'm sure you saw one of those memes where they say, here's Sephram. It says that even the best of the Gentiles should be killed, and so et cetera, et
Yes.
cetera. Okay, so somebody actually did me the honor. Not did me the honor. Somebody did me the pleasure of actually making a counter meme where it actually shows what it actually says, debunks. So so you guys can look through this for yourself. So anyone who's watching, you can look
Charge
through this for
complete.
yourselves and fact check me on this. But I already showed you two things, very important things, but just to go through more. So you have like Suffering 15. Even the best of the Goyim, which is Gentiles, should be killed. And by the way, Goyim means literally
Isn't
nation.
non-Jew?
It is used that way. And of course, I will acknowledge this much. It is sometimes used as a pejorative, but it's the most, I guess, polite pejorative that could be used, since its literal definition means Gentile. Sorry, nation. And in the 5 books of Moses, you should look this up. Look this up for yourself. You'll find the word goy, goyim, etc. in the 5 books of Moses, referring to the freaking Jews and the Israelites and the Hebrews. It says, God says to Abraham, I will turn you legoy gudoil, which means to a large nation. Gudoil means large or great. Goy is nation. Legoy gudoil, a nation that is large or whatever. So the Jews are also considered to be a nation, but the point here is that the Jews are very centered to themselves. So we see ourselves more or less as a center, and that would, by the way, go the same for the Chinese. They call
It's a
themselves
very self-preserving culture.
Yeah, but this is nothing new. Like, oh, it's very elitist or whatever. I mean, literally every culture has done this. You could look at the Chinese. They call China is not the actual name of China. China actually in Chinese is called the Middle Kingdom. That is the Middle Kingdom, the center of the earth or whatever, the center of the world. So every culture sees themselves to one extent or another, or at least in the past they saw themselves in the center. So anyway, Safram, that you should kill the best of the Gentiles. In the discussion about the Gentiles, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that in a time of war, that's how it ends. The quote ends, in time of war, the best of the Gentiles should be killed. And here's the context of that. You should kill even the best of smartest of members of the enemy, a nation, because they're determined to kill you. In time of war, when you are at war with somebody else, let's say that person is a husband, a father, a very moral person, gives charity. He's the best of the Gentiles. He listens, and he is a very moral person, but he's out there to kill you.
Exactly.
He's now waging war against the nation of Israel, and I'm not talking about the modern state of Israel. I'm talking about, the
Pre-New Testament.
Yeah. You shall kill the best of the Gentiles because they're out there to kill you. Self-defense. It's very simple.
Yeah.
That's the entire concept. Furthermore, the rest of the concept, the rest of the context of this is kind of funny because this should be, the Christians should know this, that when Pharaoh was running after the Jews, after he let out the Jews and then ran after them, tried to get them back, right? You know this, right?
Yes.
He tried to.
Yeah, he chased after him and it got part of the Red Sea.
So let me ask you an interesting question. How did he try to catch the Jews with his horses and camels or whatever he used when all the animals were killed in one of the 10 plagues? How did he have any animals?
What wasn't it? Horse-led chariots, or were
Yes,
all the horses slaughtered?
Yeah, all the horses were slaughtered. All the animals in one of the 10 plagues was explicitly to kill all of the livestock. So how did Pharaoh have horses to go after the Jews?
That is a good question. I do not presently have an answer to.
Very simple. So this is rabbinic sources which explains it. And again, Christians don't need to. As a Christian, you don't need to say, "Well, it's a rabbinic source. I can't take it." No, all you need to understand is it's not necessary nowadays to answer it. The point is that this was once useful. Now it isn't that useful. So rabbinic sources were once useful for Christians, but not now. So you're not being a heretic by acknowledging or a blasphemer or anything like that. Or you're not doing any heresy by saying that once it was useful, then Jesus came. Like most Christians feel like they have to attack that because it can never be useful ever.
Well, those are Christians that practice more so legalism.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So here's what the rabbis say, that the best of the Gentiles, most important thing, the best of the Gentiles, listen to Moses, because Moses said in the 5 books of Moses said that the animals that are inside in the stalls, they will not die. Now that's not in the 5 books of Moses, but that is said in regards to the hail. That is in regards to the hail, that the animals will not die, those who are inside. So that same logic is also applied to the death of
And what
all
is the
the
hail?
hail is the hail, the ice and fire that which rained upon Egypt.
Oh, so okay, you're talking about literally the hail. So you're saying that because they're inside, then they were spared.
Yes, that is
Understood.
that is the rabbinic interpretation. So, how did Pharaoh have horses? Well, the best of the Gentiles put those horses in the stall, so they did not die in the 10 plagues. Then, when Pharaoh needed the horses, that's how he had his horses to go after the Jews. All right?
Understood.
The best of Gentiles. Now, this is what it's important. The context of this particular quote is that the best of Gentiles listen to the prophets. They listen to the prophecy of Moses. The best of Gentiles listen to the Jewish prophets, and they are maybe moral, they listen. The best of Gentiles then give their animals to Pharaoh to go after you. They are now trying to kill you. Doesn't matter if they listen to Moses. They're now after you. Now you have a license to kill them is self-defense. That's the entire. So you see how long it took me to explain that?
Yeah.
That's so when I say you need the extra context, it's a little bit esoteric. You need the extra context. You can't take anything out of. You can't just take something and say this is what it means. This is what I mean because there's so much extra context that needs to be explained. Then you have something else. You have Gadshas, GAD space SHAS 22. It says that. Listen to this. A Jew may violate, but not marry a non-Jew girl. That's what they say. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Gachas doesn't exist. The quote doesn't exist anywhere.
That's not even a verse.
It's not a book in the Talmud, and it's not a verse anywhere, ever, forever. I dare anyone to find this. I dare. Then you have Libre David. Let me see if I have here the Libre. No, I don't have the Libre David. It's basically saying that Jews may lie to you, and if the Gentiles knew what is written in our holy books, then they would surely kill us. Doesn't exist. Libre David doesn't exist. It goes on and on. There are a whole bunch of things that just doesn't exist.
And people can't even be bothered to take 5 minutes and just fact check.
No, they
So
can't.
they screenshot it on Twitter and they're like, "Hey, look, Nick Fuentes said this. Oh, the Jews."
Well, Nick hasn't been really. He's moved on from mostly trash talking the Talmud. Mostly, as far as I know, I've been watching certain stuff, just to keep up with what the others are saying. I need to know about these things. Nick hasn't been. He used to on certain things, but for now, he has not really been talking that much about it.
Okay.
So I wouldn't really go to Nick to say, oh, he's the one propagating the message.
Oh no. I'm not saying that he is himself. I'm saying that his followers. He's gone on for so long, villainizing them for so many things. A lot of things that I feel like is he's very harsh on them, as if Israel or Jewish people have been some unique evil, as if they're doing anything worse than America has done, than China has done, and he's fixating on them and holding them to some crazily high standard. And then his followers then lead to start in every context that they can. That they feel is even loosely applicable. Oh, it's because this is such and such. It's because of the Jews, and they just do that all the time.
Yeah, my main issue with Nick or with the Groypers or whatever is that they lack any sense of perspective or any sense of not being retarded. Basically, it's that.
I agree.
And actually, I'm not calling Nick retarded. He actually is very smart. I'm talking about the Groypers, who a lot of them. They fail to understand a very simple thing, that the Jews that they are after are also my enemies. George Soros is my enemy. Larry Fink is my enemy. Larry Ellison, my enemy. These are also my enemies. But then you group me together with them.
Right.
Talmud, but these people don't believe in the Talmud. This is where the retardation comes into play. You guys need to understand. You're going after them, and you want to point out, they have some sort of Jewish supremacy, which I can also get on board on. Some of these people actually do have some semblance of Jewish supremacy where they think that they are better from everyone else, even though they don't practice the freaking religion. And I'm like, what gives, man? It's either you practice it or you don't. But that's kind of the whole freaking point here.
And you value religious Jews over genetic ones.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. You know the saying that the Jews are the chosen people of God, right?
Yes. Yeah, God's chosen people.
That is something that you'll find in the Bible. So anyone who disavows that, I'm like, you're disavowing the freaking Bible. So like I think it's in Genesis, but like, what are you guys doing? Like, Look into the freaking Bible and you see it's right there. Okay? God says you will be the nation that God chooses them. Like, what are we doing right now? Like, what are we doing being a bunch of heretics, a bunch of Christian heretics going against the Old Testament? What are you guys doing? This is stupid. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me if God chose me, because it means nothing to me. What does it mean to me? God chose you and you don't fulfill the freaking law. If you don't fulfill the freaking law, then guess what?
You being chosen is meaningless.
Exactly. So to me is I choose God. That is my main concern. I choose God every single day. I wake up, I pray to him every single day, 3 times a day. I pray to God. That is where I come from. So that is my main concern here. I choose God, not that God chose me. God chose me. He did, he didn't. It doesn't really matter to me. It matters to me if I choose him. And those people say that God chose me. Even they don't believe even in God. Larry Ellison believes in God. Like, I don't, nah.
Highly doubt it.
He's a secular hedonistic, he's a hedonistic nihilist, where which is basically Satanism. Do as thou wilt. Hedonistic nihilism. God doesn't exist, and self-pleasure is the ultimate good. That is Satanism. Do as thou wilt. So these are hedonistic nihilists. So these are my enemies as well, guys. But why am I and my fellow Orthodox Jews being lumped in with those guys? And of course, I know there are certain bad videos of Orthodox Jews spitting on Christians. There's certain videos of Orthodox Jews doing bad things. That is not nearly close to the majority or anything close to even a minority of Orthodox Jews.
And they don't care. It's so low IQ. They'll take that video to extrapolate it to expand the blame to everyone.
I can explain that, by the way. No, by no means excusing it. That is absolutely horrible and horrific, and it should be, by the way, put into proper context that, meanwhile, Muslims are killing Christians, but you don't really want to talk about that. You want to just talk about a Jew spitting on a Christian or a Muslim killing a Christian, which is worse. But the point here is that those Jews, they see Christianity as Holocaust. The what's it called again? Damn it, the Spanish Inquisition, the pogroms in Germany, in Russia. That's what they see Christianity. Because in their mind, they live in Israel. They don't live around too many Christians, and whenever they do see them, they're like, you're my ultimate enemy. You have done so much horrible harm to me. Meanwhile, here in the United States, you see Jews spitting on Christians because we have ourselves together. We live together. That is why no Jews here would do that, because we know the Christians are not going to do that. And we know Christianity way better. So they live in a predominantly Jewish society where you have secular Judaism, secular Jews, and you have Orthodox Judaism, and then you have a small minority of Christians and somewhat of a minority of Muslims. So they see as Christianity this weird abstract outsider thing that they haven't really acquainted themselves with. So that's why they're spitting and disrespecting Christianity, because they see that as an enemy. So they would need to be educated on actually not. I mean, first of all, you shouldn't be doing that regardless if they're enemy or not. But they're actually not an enemy. That's how they see it. They're taking basically years of trauma, years of turmoil and attacks and all these things, and they're boiling it down to this one moment where they're going to be spitting on Christians.
So they're doing the same things to Christians that Groypers do to Jews.
I guess so. Yes, in part. And guess what? All the Jews here in the United States, every single one, from the most secular to the most religious, condemn them. But guess what? But again, those are the Orthodox Jews who are doing it, not the secular Jews. The secular Jews, largely, they don't. I think I see maybe one video, and they seem like secular Jews. They were stomping on a cross. So I don't really know what that is about. I guess, again, some kind of blood superiority may be happening right there, because but that's that. But that explains that. Not excusing it by any stretch. As you can see, I've not excused any of it. I explained the context of why they would do that and why Jews here wouldn't do that, because we are familiar with Christians. They are not familiar. They're like, this is this outsider force, and they hate Christianity because of that reason. Oh, I wanted to move on here to the Zionism question, but before I do, I teased this earlier, so I must talk about it. The Jesus question, right?
Okay.
So you probably heard this Jesus mentioned in the Talmud, and this is exactly what what most of them are referring to. So I've read your sources. For those who are saying that I'm going to be acting here in good faith, I don't know what I'm talking about. I read the whole book. Okay. All right, I know what I'm talking about. All right, and I'm going to do the most charitable meaning of these things, and you'll see that this guy, I'm very serious about this. So the first thing what you would need to understand about Jesus in the Talmud, and I will bring up the sources so to read it to you so you know exactly what we're talking about. But in regards to Jesus in the Talmud, this guy, Peter Schaefer, I almost said Elijah Schaefer. Peter Schaefer does not say here in the book, he starts out saying that he's not saying that this is a case that Jesus is mentioned in the Talmud. He doesn't say that. He says that we're going off the assumption that it is. He's not making the case that it is talking. He's going off of the assumption that it is.
Okay.
He's making an assumption that it is. So he's not making the case that it is. All right? Big, huge difference. So there's that. Now, let's go. Let me see if I can bring this up here. I'm going to Google. Actually, I can Google this on this. Hey, blacked out. There we go. So where is it? All right. So I'm going to look this up here. Jesus in the Talmud. In the helmet. Nice. Talmud.
The quote that I saw from that video that I reacted to a couple months back was, in simple terms, it was essentially that one rabbi mentioned there were three people under either the name or identity of Jesus, and he said that that one of them is burning an excrement.
Yes.
And that was pretty much the extent of it. I'm
gonna have to find. I don't know. How am I gonna find this? I need to. I can't remember what is the exact. What is the exact location in the Talmud because it's so big. Yeah, I always get people saying that you read the Talmud. I'm like, what? All 63 books? Did you read them all 63? Because that's an accomplishment, man. Congrats.
That's a book right there, man. Jeez.
And I love it when they say I read the Talmud. All 63 books, and they're like, books? Yeah, books. Because the Talmud is a book. It isn't. The Talmud is not a book. It's a collection of books. Sanhedrin 43a. Oh, okay, I found it. Sanhedrin 43a. Let's go. There it is. Safari app encountered an error. Why would you encounter an error? Why would you right now? Now is not the time to encounter an error. All the times to encounter an error, now is not the freaking time.
I can see if I can pull it up.
You try to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Sanhedrin. Is that you spell
Sanhedrin.
it?
However you would spell it, it probably should work.
Sanhedrin 43a. Exact quote.
Let's see, maybe I can do this.
Oh, okay. So it's coming out in or in Hebrew, and then it's going to translate to English. Okay, it's doing that right now. And AI terrifies me, but it is very useful in a lot of contexts.
Yeah. Rin 43a. Full quote. Giving me exposition. I don't need you to explain it to me. If I ask you for exposition, give me the exposition. I don't need the Don't give me the Hebrew. Don't give me the exposition.
Okay, I think I have it. Okay, the sages taught on the eve of Passover. They hung Yeshu, and the herald went out before him. Do you have it?
Yes, I found it. Okay, so cool. Now I'm here. So actually, this is not the one that I'm looking for. It's a different one. We can work off of this one, no problem. I'm looking for the one with the it's called again with him in excrement. But yeah, so here's one with Yeshua Natsri, which would be certain would translate it as Nazarene, but Natsri can also mean that a person could be of a very tight-knit community. So there are two definitions for this. Yeshua the Nazarene is going forth to be stoned in. He practiced in sorcery, indicted on idolatry, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so this explains the death penalty of what he got. So why did he get the death penalty? I'm going to look this up now. Yeshu, Jesus in the Talmud X. I hope this time he gives me. Okay, Gittin, that's the one. Gittin 57a. So Onkelos went and he raised Yeshu from the grave. So there's the same person we're talking about, right? So Yeshu. So his name is Yeshu. That's the first issue we have here. Yeshu is not Jesus. Jesus is Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeshu is a different name, you'll notice. So people could say, well, it's just
Or is it like an abbreviation?
some kind. So that's the counter argument. So I'm presenting to you the counter argument, which, okay, I hear you. So that could be the case, but his name was always Yeshua. But let's continue here. Yeshu said to him, seek their welfare, seek not their harm. Whoever touches them as though he touches the apple of God's eye. Onkelos said to him, what is your punishment? Yeshu said to him, boiling an excrement. As the sages taught, whoever mocks the words of the sages is punished by boiling an excrement. All right. So this is the highly damning part, right? This is like, okay, this is complete and total blasphemy, utterly and totally, like, why would you write this? Out of a pure hatred towards Christianity? Well, I can definitely say this was not made out of a hatred towards Christianity, if this is talking about Christianity. Because now I've read this part, I'm going to go to the final part which completes all of this, because these are the three parts, as I recall, the three parts where they talk about Jesus.
Okay.
I mean, if it is Jesus, and I'll show you in a moment. Jesus in the Talmud. What's it called again? The
You said Sanhedrin something?
worker. Let's see if this thing Shabbat 104b, all right? Shabbat 104b. Wait a minute. Nope, not this one. You got the wrong one. No, I'm talking about she got narrow eyes. I hope this...
That's not familiar to me.
Okay, I found it. So,
Okay.
Yeshua, Sanhedrin 107a, Babylonian Talmud. Yeshu was excommunicated by Rabbi Yeshua ben Parachia. Once, when Rabbi Yeshua ben Parachia was traveling with Yeshu, they came to an inn. The innkeeper woman stood up before and honored them greatly. Rabbi Joshua said, how beautiful is this innkeeper? Yeshu said to him, Rabbi, her eyes are narrow. Rabbi Joshua replied, wicked one, do not occupy yourself with such thoughts. He brought out 400, this is basically just poetical, he didn't really bring out 400 ram's horns to blow the shofar.
Got it.
But this is just poetic language. And excommunicated him. Yeshua came before him several times and said, accept me back. But he paid no attention. One day, Rabbi Joshua was reciting the Shema, which is, hear Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And we cover our eyes. I do this every day, twice a day. One in the morning and one before I go to sleep. That is the Shema, which, by the way, a very interesting thing is that the oldest fragment, this is just on a random point, the oldest fragment that we have of any biblical or any Jewish writing that exists to this day is a silver inscription with the Shema. That
Really?
Hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That is crazy to me. That is like divine providence. Like the only one,
That's awesome.
like that is one thing that we would still have. Like the oldest one would be that God is only one. Like that's crazy to me. Anyway, let's go. Oh, one day Joshua was reciting the Shema. So he was reciting the Shema. So when he came close, he was putting his eyes over him. So Yeshu saw that as if he's rejecting him because he came close to him and he's now going to recite the Shema and he's going like this. He's like, oh, you don't want to talk with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened. He came, he intended to accept him, but he saw him and he was finally ready to accept him back into the fold and, accept him back as a student. But Yeshu thought that he was rejecting him. So he went up and set up a brick and worshipped it. Jesus never worshipped a brick, right? So, but this Yeshu did worship a brick. Rabbi Yeshua said, repent. Yeshu said, this is what I learned from you. Anyone who sins and causes others to sin is not given the opportunity to repent. All right. Now, why is this even important to talk about? Very simple. I pressed on the wrong thing here. Don't worry. Go back to the part of Yesh. Nope.
Technology's so annoying sometimes.
Jesus in the Talmud. Go back to Jesus. Okay. And who was the king at the time? This is the important part. I don't know why they didn't include this. So they fled to. So Rabbi Yeshua. So this is Sanhedrin 107a, right? Mm-hmm. Rabbi Yeshua ben Parachia fled to Alexandria in Egypt with Yeshu, because when King Yanai, Alexander Janus, was killing the sages. Now this is the main clue that shows that this may not be the Jesus the rabbis, that the historical Jesus of 2,000 years ago, because Alexander Yanai, which coincidentally I have a coin from his time, a prita, widow's mite, which is actually mentioned in the New Testament as well.
That's super cool.
Yeah, copper. It's clipped. Don't worry. I'm joking. But the point here is this: he lived about 120 years before the historical Jesus. Mm-hmm. Alexander Janai lived in that time. Alexander Janus. So that would mean that this Yeshu lived about 120 years before the historical Jesus. Mm-hmm. See the issue here? How can this be the same Jesus if he lived 120 years before?
That doesn't make sense.
All right. So I'm going to be totally honest with you. This could be just a trick. This could be a trick that they're using this plausible deniability, saying that, no, it's not the same Jesus, but they're just backdating it in order to make it seem as if the same Jesus. But at that point, this is not historical. None of this that we were talking about here is historical, because we all know the historical Jesus, right? Yes. We all know none of this is historical. The New Testament is way more accurate in... I don't believe in the New Testament, but the point here is that it's way more historically accurate than whatever we're reading right now. So that would mean that this is a polemic. This is basically saying that, no, we don't believe in Jesus. Here are the reasons why. And then these are sophisticated polemics. And I would say you should actually read this, because it's very interesting, actually. Contrary to what most people would think. No, you don't want people to read it. This goes against your argument, because if more people read this book, then they would, become convinced that it's definitely talking about the Jesus. It makes a very compelling case, but it has a lot of assumptions, it makes too many assumptions for me to be comfortable with saying that is the historical Jesus. What I will say is, to be completely fair, I think it may just be talking about the historical Jesus, maybe 70%. Around 70%. 30% maybe not talking about, but 30% may just be talking about
someone with the same name. Or
a
similar-ish name.
Sorry, I messed up. There's in certain parts, this book may be talking about the historical Jesus, about 70%, and other. Here in this particular aspect, I would say it's more like 60-40. That's 60%. I don't think that I'm 60% sure it's not the historical Jesus. But if it is, it's a polemic. But here's the best part. To believe that Jesus is boiling in excrement, this, if it is the historical Jesus, if it is the Christian Jesus, again, it's a polemic. That's number one. It's not a concrete thing that is verifiable. It's a polemic because Jews reject Jesus. But the main issue here is that as Jews, we don't believe that hell is eternal. Hell is a place where you go to cleanse your soul to get into heaven. If you do not do well on this world, then you go to hell and your soul gets cleansed, and after some time, you go to heaven. Which means, if Jesus is in hell boiling in excrement, he's not anymore. Definitely not anymore. Right now, Jesus, he was a Jew. According to Judaism, Jesus would be right now in heaven. Right now, as things are, if he was a sinner. I don't believe he was a sinner. I don't believe he even was taken to hell. I believe that he was a heterodox rabbi, Orthodox. He was a Pharisee. He did believe in the Pharisaic law. It's in the Old Testament. You can clearly see he was circumcised on the 8th day. Phariseeism. He said that you should follow the Pharisees. To his followers, he told the followers, you should follow the Pharisees and the scribes. Why would Jesus say that if he's not a Pharisee? Furthermore, the best part of it all is, what was he if not a Pharisee? Was he a Sadducee? Definitely not. Was he an Essene? No. Was he a What was he like?
Do you not think that he was speaking about that in the context of obeying the law of the land of where you are or what you inhabit?
Yes, and that's exactly what the Pharisees were doing. So he's saying Pharisees go follow what the Pharisees are saying, but not what they're doing, because they're hypocrites. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Pharisees at the time were hypocrites. As a matter of fact, the Pharisees, the rabbis themselves, admitted to it in the Talmud. You could see multiple places where they say that there was a lot of corruption, hatred. This is why the Romans were able to conquer us, and this is exactly why God punished the Jews. Which I guess this brings us to the next segment here, of not being a, it's called again, a Zionist. In the Talmud,
I'm very, very interested on your position on this.
Yes, so I will explain. So here's the first thing. So the first thing you need to understand, by the way, the Talmud, there's almost nothing definitive in the Talmud, because it's a conversation with debates.
Right.
If you want Jewish law, all the Jew haters, I'm going to give you the stuff that you need to know. If you want to find out what the Jewish law is, you should buy the Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch, or whatever, however you want to pronounce it. That's where you would find all the Jewish law. That's the final say on Jewish law, the Shulchan Aruch. All right, the Talmud is not the final say. It's debates. It's a stenography. It is.
And most Jews don't even read the Talmud, right?
No, we do. The Orthodox Jews do. We study it a lot.
Well, no, by most Jews, I mean like the population of Jewish people on the planet.
Yeah, most of them don't. Most of the particularists, they don't believe in that. As I said, they don't find me a photo with George Soros and the Talmud. So here's what the Talmud says about Zionism, or about conquering your own land. The first thing is that Jews should not ascend to the land of Israel en masse as if a wall. Second thing, this is the 3 promises that God promised the Jews that they should not do. That Israel should not rebel against the nations of the world. And finally, the nations should not subjugate Israel excessively. And that is the nation of Israel, not the state of Israel. So these are the 3 things. And if you violate these 3 things, God will make the Jews as if they are the animals of the wild, and they shall be hunted down if they break any of these three laws, any of these 3 promises. So the Talmud is explicitly, in no uncertain terms, saying that you shall not go and rebel against the nations of the world, which exactly that is what Israel did. It rebelled against the mandated Palestine, British mandated Palestine. It went to war with the local Arabs and Muslims, and it went to war actually with the Brits, as well as it did Aliyah, which was bring a whole bunch of Jews to Israel, which is explicitly prohibited in the Talmud. Now, the reason for this is because God punished the Jews after the second exile, that Jews have to leave Israel because we sinned, and we accept that. But to go and create your own state before the time of the Messiah, and this is where you believe that the Messiah has already come and there's going to be a second coming and all that, we'll get it. I have no problem to get into that as well. But for Jews to claim a land before the time of the Messiah is a sin, because we have to wait until the Messiah comes in order to claim the land. We shall not take it before that. So here's my position. This is my personal position. And actually, this is largely, this is by and large, more or less, there are certain variations of this, and I'll explain why. On this. But I come from the Satmar sect. You can look this up. We have, like, every year or so, we have like a huge, we never go protesting together with the Palestinians and with the pro-Palestinian crowds, because we don't trust them. But we have our own anti-Israel protests, huge entire stadiums filled with Orthodox Jews, Hasidic Jews, who are against the state of Israel. You can look this up, Satmar Gathering, anti-Zionism, something like that. I'm sure you'll find it. After this, if you want, I'll DM it to you later on. So Satmar was founded explicitly against anti-Zionism, to combat the Zionist message, because we are not supposed to do that, because it's a rebellion against God. Now, this is my private, and not my private, my personal opinion here. So the Jews are not allowed to have Israel, right? And I definitely don't want the Muslims to have it, because of certain very obvious reasons, right?
Because they out their damn mind.
Not only that, they would slaughter people, as well as I don't want another country under Sharia law. Mm-hmm. And I don't want the United Nations to have it. I don't want them to have it, because they're a satanic group, and I don't think that They run anything particularly well. I don't want the blue helmets to have it. They go in Africa and rape children. So I'm like, no, I don't want you guys to have it. So who's left? You tell me, who's left?
The current Jews.
No, as I said, the Jews should not have it. So who's left? The Jews can't have it. The Muslims can't have it. The secularists.
Oh,
can't
okay.
Have it.
Oh, so you're talking about from your personal perspective.
Yes. So who's left? So the Jews can't have it because Zionism is a sin. The secularists, the secular who don't believe even in God, the United Nations basically, I don't believe they should have it because what did they do anything good to the world?
Nothing. They just bring chaos and
the Muslim.
depravity.
And the Muslims shouldn't have it. So who's left? We should know this. Come on. It's obvious. The Christians. I believe the Christians should have it. I believe there was a Crusader kingdom. The Christians had it in the first time.
See, the reason why I wasn't going to say Christians is because Christians are not. I feel like in a way
indigenous to the land. I'm sorry to tell you this. Christians are indigenous to the land. I mean, they came from Judaism. Jews are indigenous. Christians are indigenous to the land. I'm like, give it to the Christians. I trust the Christians, Muslims, or the secularists, and I definitely don't believe the Jews should have it. Why shouldn't the Christians?
The only reason why is because to go and inhabit an already populated place.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the government should be turned over to the Christians. That the government, a minority government of Christians, should govern it, and that's about it. Like that. I mean, I
you
know
saying they should govern it. So can the Israelites or the Jews that live there now? Are you saying that they should be displaced or removed?
Necessarily, because again, then you go into displacement and replacement, and you have a whole bunch of other issues again. Now we're recycling the same mistakes of the past. What I am saying is that the government, the form of government, and how government should be run should be with a Christian head of state. Simple.
I mean, I wouldn't argue against that.
I mean, the only people I trust at this point are the Christians. By the way, I don't trust even if I were a Zionist hypothetically, which I am not. But even if I were, I wouldn't even trust the current government, neither the leftists nor the conservatives, neither the Likud party, Bibi Netanyahu, or anyone. I wouldn't trust them either because they're so horrible. The way they executed the situation in Gaza. I'm a Machiavellian. You should read Niccolo Machiavelli's book, The Prince. It's very enlightening, and as a Machiavellian, I understand that death by 1,000 cuts is not good for everyone, for anyone, as a matter of fact.
So you're against the way that
yes.
Okay. So I am not someone that categorically believes that the conflict was a genocide, because when you
neither do I necessarily, but I don't need it to be a genocide for me to condemn it. I can say that whatever is happening right now, I don't like it, and it's horrible and it's disgusting.
What do you then say to the Palestinian civilians that cheer for the public executions?
The Palestinian civilians. What should I say to them?
This is my personal perspective. I think that I'm sure there is a small community of reasonable, decent, non-violent civilians that don't want to genocide the rest of the world, like Hamas, that live in Palestine. But largely, the Palestinians voted in Hamas to govern them. And whenever they do horrific things to Palestinians who they claim to be Israeli conspirators, it's like 1,000 people in a crowd cheering, "Oh my gosh, yes, kill this person, cut their head off, beat them to death."
Yes, but here's the issue. There's also another side to this. There's a huge side to this. If you understand Niccolo Machiavelli, then you understand how the nature of the world works. Niccolo Machiavelli explains this is why he was so condemned by Christians in particular, because Christians have this, utopian worldview of how morality should be focused on. Meanwhile, Niccolo Machiavelli explained how the world actually works.
That's not my Christianity. I don't think that at all.
So, but what I am saying that the Christians of the time. So the Niccolo Machiavelli explains the world how it actually works and the nature of human beings and nature of politics. So when you have Israel, there is an apartheid system in Israel. Now, of course, the counter argument is, well, the Muslims can vote, and Muslims can. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure, they have certain rights, but in other places, their rights are completely taken away and they're completely dehumanized. Such as they have complete and total checkpoints where they have to go through normal working people who did not do anything wrong. They are immediately considered to be guilty before innocence. They're guilty before innocence. They have to prove their innocence, that they're not bad people. Furthermore,
Are they practicing Muslims?
Yes, more or less. I mean, they're Palestinians.
I'm not against that. I'm gonna be honest.
Their entire areas where they cannot enter, and that goes actually both ways. There are certain places where Jews cannot enter and only Muslims can enter. So it goes both ways. But the point here is that there is an apartheid-esque system going on. That does not create more stability. That does not create more flourishing and understanding and clarity. What it does create is animus and hatred and malice. That's what it creates. That's how the world works. Therefore, when you have people who are going to take up a gun and start shooting people, it's not that complicated to think that, okay, yeah, that's how the world works. If people are constantly going to be put to death by 1,000 cuts, that's what's going to happen. If the Israelis went into Gaza, hypothetically speaking, let's say there was a certain amount of children that died, a certain amount of Palestinians that died, but it wasn't too much, but it was in a relentless bombing, and it was quick. It would have been done, let's say, 4 months, 5 months, done, over, and they bombed exactly what they needed to bomb. Then I would say in that case, well, they did what they had to do, and it was quick. It's not death by 1,000 cuts. It's done. But this prolonged attack where people have their children being killed over and over again, all over the place, as well as, you know that most of these buildings were built with asbestos. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. Asbestos. These people are breathing it in. How many more terrorists are going to be created when they see that their little sister died because of cancer, because of that asbestos? A lot more.
These are casualties of war, though, because they refuse to give up the hostages.
I understand that, but there is a way of waging war. There is a way of waging it in order to create less death, less destruction, and less terrorists.
Why does Israel have to bend over backwards to do things in the most humanitarian way possible, but Hamas doesn't have to do anything except for complete and utter barbarism?
Because they are a terror organization. That's by definition what they do. A government doesn't get that luxury to do whatever they wish. They need to show legitimacy in the eyes of the people, not only to their own people, but the people they're fighting against, to say, we are not like them. We want you guys to be free from them. But when you do this, when the state of Israel continuously bombs, death by 1,000 cuts, they only create more and more terrorists. This is not helping anyone. Of course, Hamas is a terror organization, but there is a way of executing war that creates less casualties. There's a way of doing that helps people in the long run. There is a way of doing that. Israel has done everything in its power, according to what I can see, in order to create more casualties. And it seems to be, to me, a revenge cakewalk. Here's the thing. Multiple people in the Israeli government have expressed their genocidal words. They called them Amalek, which is the ancient enemy of the Israelites. You know this, right? Amalek is the ancient enemy of the Israelites, which God ordered for them to be genocided. This is in the 5 books of Moses. So when you say that they are Amalek, what you're saying is that they should be genocided. That's genocidal talk. So it's kind of hard for me to say, no, the Israeli government definitely doesn't want to do a genocide. Definitely the Israeli government just wants the best for everyone. I'm like, they're using genocidal language to describe their enemies.
Because the way that their enemies are so openly hostile to them, the Quran, I don't even know how many verses, explains to mercilessly slaughter Jews and Christians alike indiscriminately.
Yes, I am aware of that.
So this is my discrepancy with what your point is that you cannot make peace and operate in the best faith possible. You just said that they are doing everything in their power to justify genocidal intent towards the Palestinians. How can you say that when they tell civilians to evacuate before they bomb places, when they make literal direct precision airstrikes on Hamas leaders' a individual unit of an apartment building to minimize casualties, and then also they're still trying to have some sort of this is the reason why I'm so not a simp for Palestine or why I don't feel bad for them. It's because every single conflict that has happened since the foundation of Israel has not been initiated by Israel. It is always
That's true.
they live in a PvP server with people that believe in a book that thinks that they should be wiped off of the face of the planet. You can't live in peace with these people. They are fundamentally hostile to you and absolutely batshit insane.
First part about the Quran and all that, I know about this. This is like I expose it every single day. I go through Islam and I get death threats based on. Actually, not anymore. These people only understand force, so I told them that I'm gonna burn the Quran if they don't stop sending me death threats, and they stopped sending me death threats. So that's how this works. But so I know I'm very well aware of how these people operate. Again, Nicola Machiavelli, I understand how the world operates and the nature of things. Here's the first issue. Here's the first mistake. First misconception, I guess, that you have, that Israel never started any war against any of them. You should look up the Suez Canal crisis, which Israel tried to take control together with the British and the French. Again, it was a war that was not in self-defense. They just tried to steal that from the Egyptians. Just tried to take away the canal, the Suez Canal. So Israel has fought offensive wars in the past, and it's I think there was a one war which I can't remember, but Israel definitely has done that. So that would be.
But why do you? But you're like you're judging them so harshly. But you have an American flag behind you, and I love my country. I'm a Christian nationalist for America, and I want the prosperity of my nation. How many horrific things has our country done? We went into Iran literally for oil, and to continue promoting the military-industrial complex. And I don't hear you condemning. You're not going on a tirade saying that, oh my gosh, America is so horrible. They're this opportunistic nation that goes in because of their immense power and money and influence, and they go do whatever they want in these other foreign nations. Like, it's always, let's hold Israel to the highest standard possible, and you want them to negotiate with terrorists. You can't negotiate with terrorists.
Well, not necessarily. Well, I wouldn't say that is an equivalency, and I'll get to that in a moment. But before that, I just also wanted to mention. Oh, damn it! What was it? In regards to that you said that Israel bombs strategically, very precise and all that. Here's my thing. How am I to believe that if they are using genocidal language? You see, the genocidal language comes first. If they use genocidal language and then they use the bombing, then I say, is your bombing motivated by your genocidal language? Because if they didn't use that kind of language, then you would maybe have an argument to say that, well, they're very precise. But if they say, no, they're basically all of them and they should be completely neutralized, then I'm thinking, okay, so it sounds like that you're bombing, you're making it look as if you're not indiscriminately bombing, but you kind of are. It kind of looks like that. Furthermore, here's a whole bunch of other issues that I can point to. We know how smart the Jews are. Them Jews are very smart. That's how they control the world. But we know how smart the Israelis are, especially the Mossad, and they were able to operate an immense amount of genius in Iran with this latest attack on Iran, as well as the pagers bombing in Lebanon. Two questions. One is, am I now to suspect or to believe that they couldn't see the October 7th thing coming? Am I now to believe that? You have Pegasus, which is an Israeli spyware. I feel like you should have employed that in Gaza. If any place you employed in the United States, but you should have employed it in Gaza. That's kind of like, I feel like you should do that if you want to stop any more terror attacks. That's number one. And number two is, damn it, I'm blanking out on this one. Regardless, the point here is that it feels like you're trying to create, to Israel, you're trying to create as much suffering as possible because to you it is a revenge. You saw that it was going to happen, or it feels like you saw, or when it did happen, you had a stand down order, which at this point I feel like it's kind of indisputable that there was some kind of stand down order.
Even Charlie Kirk came out and said that because if it is a completely militarized nation, how in the world do you allow people at a music festival for 6 hours to live stream Israeli citizens getting their heads chopped off and pregnant women stabbed in their stomachs with machetes? How in the world does that happen for 6 hours and nothing happens in the most iron tight legitimate, like, Charlie said that you can, because I've never been to Israel, but you can go from coast to coast in a helicopter. It takes 45 minutes, and you can't go more than 20 feet on the Gaza Strip without a 19-year-old with a machine gun.
So how were they able to do what they did?
It doesn't make sense.
Okay, so what seems to be the case is, kind of seems like, this is what it seems to be the case. Somebody wanted something like this to happen. To the extent that it did happen, that they wanted to go that far? I don't know. Could be that they just wanted something more containable, maybe. But whatever happened seems to be some kind of controlled, something that was controlled. They wanted it to happen. When it did happen, now it gives them permission to go there and enact revenge because they're bloodthirsty. Certain people there might be bloodthirsty. Maybe they want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. And when I say ethnically cleanse, I don't mean genocide. There's a difference. One is to remove a population and one is to kill a population, right? So it could be that. Also, to your point that, they dropped leaflets telling them that they're going to bomb, right? First of all, by the way, that was exactly what the United States did in Vietnam. We allowed our enemy to know when we were going to bomb them. So America didn't really lose the Vietnam War. We just allowed them to win. But here's but to the point here is, okay, so now you dropped a whole bunch of leaflets and now they know that they're going to be bombed. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Where's their shelter? Where's their food? Like, there's a whole bunch of other things like, we're just going to leave our house.
To be fair, they did provide a lot of aid that the UN refused to disperse amongst Palestinians.
But again, that goes to the point. Now, where's shelter? Now winter is coming up, and winter already happened once and twice, but now a third time. Where are they going to go? All of these things are not just abstract ideas. These are things that have fundamental, concrete consequences to these people. And it feels like Israel's trying to create the most amount of suffering that is possible for whatever reason. I'm not completely sure. I have my theories, but I can definitely not say that this is moral in any way, and definitely not moral for Christians to do. Definitely not moral. So, and it's all being funded by the United States. Now, when we want to get out of wars, we don't want to be in wars. To your point, you asked, okay, so what about us? We also did a whole bunch of horrible things or whatever. Well, a lot of the horrible things that we have done is actually overblown by shitlibs who keep on saying that we did these things, and a lot of these things either weren't done or were way overblown. But to the things that we did actually do, the bad things that we actually did do, we acknowledge that those were bad, and we don't want to do that again. But Israel continuously, over and over again, bombs over and over again, sets up checkpoints over again, have these people dehumanized over and over again, have them breathe in the asbestos over and over again. This only creates a cycle of violence unlike you've ever seen before. And my main concern is, as a Machiavellian, what creates the most human flourishing, what gains the government the most amount of legitimacy? Nothing the Israeli government has done has gained them legitimacy. They have lost the propaganda war, but I think they lost the legitimacy war. You think that all the people who see that, they're just kind of just anti-Semitic, retarded or whatever? They just know they don't like what they're seeing because it's way too much. If this was for about, let's say, maybe 5 months, maybe 4 months, I would want it to be as least amount of time as possible. And there was a large bombing campaign going on, but it was precise. They got the targets and then they went out. You think that this was...
if you're operating under the pretense assumption that they did in fact allow October 7th to happen in order to legitimize these attacks that they're doing, I completely agree with you. But man, it's really difficult to be charitable to that not being the case, because it is so heavily militarized, and they know that they live in a PvP server with people that in their holy book want to wipe them off of the planet. Why in the world would they drop the ball and just open up an area for them to enter to begin with? It's so devoid of logic from the way that they function as a military state that I really don't know. It's almost like you have to ask the question, or at the very least entertain it, of there being a stand down order. It's really difficult to not operate from that perspective.
Hatred, bloodthirst, and revenge. Very simple, very easy concepts, very natural to humans. This government, the Israeli government, have, I guess, they have to live with what they see as animals, people who behave as animals, who are willing to rape, who pronounce their rapes and scream it from the rooftops, people who kill and celebrate it. They celebrate that their children will die as martyrs. So they have to live with those people. That radicalizes a lot of people. And this goes, by the way, you know what? I'm sure you saw the videos of the Palestinians celebrating death and all that, right?
Mhm.
You know, there are entire Telegram groups of Israelis where they're doing literally the exact same thing, where they're celebrating and laughing at the death of children. They are celebrating. They see mutilated corpses and they're laughing, leaving laughing emojis. They're happy that it's happening. These are Israelis in on Telegram chats where they're just happy. Thousands of them, thousands. So this goes.
That's not unique to them though. That's just the depravity of human beings.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. That's exactly what I'm getting at. That war radicalizes people and it makes them into extremists. These people now, they to them, they saw, oh wow, rape, murder, and all that. So they're like, okay, I guess, well, we should respond in kind. That is nature. That is natural. It's bad. It's evil. It's deplorable and detestable, but it is natural. Much like gay sex is largely natural, but it's an abomination. But the point here, but to understand,
It's just acting upon your flesh. It's just sin.
yes. So the point here is that these people, they are reacting this way because this is the nature of things. So this idea that it's it's only the Muslims here who are being completely irrational, or they just want to kill. Well, if there are thousands and thousands of people, maybe millions, who are celebrating the death of innocent Muslims who, don't know better, they don't know the ideology of Islam, but they just want to live their life, who are being murdered in the streets, killed by drone attacks, being shot in the testicles by Israeli soldiers, killed by Israeli soldiers, children, I saw that, children being killed, and the Israeli soldiers were just laughing. It was funny to them. They just killed a child.
So those videos, you're legitimizing them. I went on my live streams and I searched for these things. The only videos that I could find online of these things happening was IDF soldiers like hand walking food up to Palestinian children because Hamas was taking all the aid that they delivered to them. I couldn't find anything as hard as I looked, because I did, even on and off stream. I would look specifically for what all the leftists were claiming that IDF was doing to innocent Palestinians. I couldn't find them. So I'm not saying that what you're saying is incorrect. I just haven't seen them myself to legitimize it.
Sure, I'll be happy when I don't save them really. So if I come across them again, I'll definitely send it to you so you can see it
Okay.
for yourself. So, but you have people like that. So when you have people like that in the military, you definitely have them in government. If you have them in government, that would explain to you. You're trying to understand why would somebody allow something like this to happen. Actually, it's very simple: bloodlust, bloodthirst, and revenge. To them, it is revenge because they have to live with people who celebrate death. But guess what? The Palestinians also have to live with people who celebrate death. My question is, what would create the most human flourishing? I don't care who started whatever. I don't care who is responsible for whatever. I really don't. At this point, I cannot care about it. And I don't even care about Palestine or about the Israeli state existing or the Palestinian state existing as in the abstract. If we can come to a two-state solution and there's peace, let's do it. If we cannot come to a two-state solution and there's peace, let's do that. Whatever gets us peace, that's what I am after at this point. So there are multiple arguments to make one way or the other. I can make the argument that Palestine never existed in the first place, and I would be totally correct in that, because it hasn't. The only national identity of the Palestinian only existed in the 1960s first, and before that they all identified as Arabs. And they hated the Turks, by the way. Do you know who identified as Palestinians? The Jews. The Jews were Palestinian Jews. The Arabs identified as Arabs, not as to distinguish themselves from the Turks, the Ottoman Turks. So we can go through these meaningless things of who was there first, identities, nationalities, and all that. We can go through that and see who has a better claim to the land. Does it, in the end of the day, doesn't matter if it creates more human suffering? Not really. No. Not to me, at least. So I'm like, look, whatever creates the least amount of human suffering, and I believe that the only way to stop this human suffering would be to give it over to a Christian government in order to, mitigate some kind of peace between the Christians. I think the Christians would have the most credibility, as well as the most, what's the word? the most faith would be put in them, both from the Palestinians and from the Jews. That okay, because the Jews are not going to trust the Muslims, and the Muslims are not going to trust the Jews. Well, the middle road here is Christians. The middle
the
people,
Muslims are very antagonistic towards Christians as well.
I am aware, but in that region, they hate more the Jews than the Christians. So I would say that they could have a much more easier time talking to a Christian than they would to a Jew. So I believe that in that case, there would be a much more, an easier way, an easier road to peace. But I don't believe in any form that Israel exists that there will be that there will be peace. I don't believe that not if the left wing takes over, nor the right wing. The right wing is incredibly militaristic, and they attack Palestinians and they kill them and they make fun of them. Then when the left comes into power, they say all those things the right wing did was horrible, and then they continue to do all those exact same things. So it's like of one mind that the Palestinians are the enemy, and it doesn't. I just don't want people to die. I literally just don't want people to die. I don't want to fund those wars. I want Israel to give us a refund on everything that we gave them ever, because
ever. Oh, jeez.
Yes. Yeah. You should read The Creature from Jekyll Island. Ever heard of it?
I've heard of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but never The Creature of Jekyll Island.
You should read The Creature of Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve. You will soon to come to understand that all the money that we give to literally every country, which Trump now wants to bail out Argentina. I'm like, we've done this for the 10th time. Can we please stop this? But every time we give out more money, it comes out of your pocket. Yes, you're not taxed, but guess what? You're inflated. Your money is inflated.
And it's worth less.
Yes, so you should read that. That book will radicalize you. You'll realize that Winston Churchill was a war criminal. You'll realize a whole bunch of things that you really didn't know. Like,
I'm gonna write that down. Actually, that sounds really interesting.
Yes, it is incredibly. Winston Churchill being a war criminal, not because of the bombing of Dresden, not even that. I'm talking about the Lusitania. You should see what he did with the Lusitania. This guy, he killed American citizens because he wanted to get the bankers their checks. He wanted to get America involved in World War I. He's a war criminal. He was in charge of the British Admiralty, and he killed American citizens because he wanted to get the Americans involved in World War I. So he caused the sinking of the Lusitania. It was the Germans who tried to warn the Americans to stop. Guess what? The Mandel House, who was the right-hand man of the president, Andrew Woodrow Wilson said that.
I was about to say Andrew Jackson. I was like, that's way before.
Woodrow Wilson said, "My thoughts are his thoughts." This is a not a literal quote, but basically he said that my thoughts are his thoughts. He was the right hand man of the president, Mandel House, who was working for the bankers in Great Britain, and the stock exchange, etc., for the British National Bank, and he stopped, by his order and through the president, they stopped the advertising of not going on the Lusitania. The Germans were taking out advertisements in the United States, New York Times, etc., telling Americans, don't go on the Lusitania because it's a British warship and we are going to shoot it down once it leaves. We have every right to bomb it because guess what? You can Google this right now. It was carrying weapons while it was sailing from America to Britain, and it carried American citizens. The Germans had every right to bomb that ship because it was a warship carrying weapons, and they sunk it. The Germans sunk it, but they also let the Americans know, don't go on that ship. Guess what? Mandel House and the president conspired together with the British in order to not advertise in American newspapers that this was going to happen. We still have the newspaper. We have from some newspapers, we have the actual advertisement showing that they were trying to warn everyone. The Germans tried to warn everyone, and the American president allowed this to happen. Mandel House, working for the British, and under the advisement of the British Admiralty, the head, which was Winston Churchill, they bombed and killed American citizens in order to get America involved in World War I on behalf of bankers. Yes, that actually happened. That is crazy.
Wow. And What the only story that I've heard like this that I truly do believe, and I have seen completely definitive, damning evidence for it being legitimate, is the Titanic in like 1913, 14, and how everybody against the Federal Reserve was on there, and they deliberately sunk that ship so that they could create it and turn America into a business.
With regards to the Titanic, I'm not completely convinced of it, but I'm like, okay, sure, whatever gets us to get rid of the Federal Reserve, throw out whatever conspiracy theory you want. You want to say that the Federal Reserve killed 5 million people in the past? I would be like, let's go for it. I just want to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Whatever lie you want to come up in order to get rid of the Federal Reserve, it's
a
fucking
means to an end, yeah.
Yes, I'm a Machiavellian. I'm going to repeat myself that I'm a Machiavellian, but it all stems from that because, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. That's from Stalin, and the other one is that the ends justify the means. Conservatives and moralists are like, no, we can't ever say that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Of course the ends justify the means.
Yeah, they do.
Of course.
In certain contexts, they all absolutely do.
You gotta use prudence. You gotta use discernment. You gotta use morality. You gotta use a whole bunch of things. Justice. You gotta use all these things in order to come to a good conclusion.
Exactly.
But ends obviously justify the means. Like there are certain ends that justify certain means. Like what are you talking about? You shall not kill or murder. Well, if somebody wants to kill you, then the ends justify the means.
You had to do something.
Yeah. So this is so incredibly stupid. The ends never justify the means. But yeah. It clearly does. I'm trying to remember, where were we? Can't even remember.
You were talking about Winston Churchill and how there's an agreement between Britain and America Germany warned us not to get on that ship, and then it was like a false flag to get us involved in World War I.
Yes, but the ends justify the means. I don't remember how we got here. It doesn't matter. But anyway, yeah, you're gonna read that book. You're gonna start understanding also the Russian Revolution. You're gonna understand. The Russian Revolution was also bankrolled by American bankers.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point, honestly.
It was. It freaking was. But here's the thing. It also goes back to, okay, now we're going back to the Jewish question, the JQ, Jewish question, the Jews controlling the world. Again, with people who are hedonistic nihilists or secularists. This is my main argument, by the way. You're going to love this. If we were to replace the people at the Federal Reserve, now I remember we were talking about the Federal Reserve. If we were to replace the people at the Federal Reserve, the WHO, all the United Nations, we were to replace... World Economic Forum, all those dastardly evil Jews, which, by the way, they are dastardly evil Jews. They're not Jews, but whatever. If we were to replace them and we put in Christians there, do you think the problems of the world would be solved?
Maybe not solved, but they would be a lot less pervasive.
Come on, don't be silly. Of course, the positions corrupt these people. These positions shouldn't exist. The Federal Reserve shouldn't exist. The WHO shouldn't exist. The World Economic Forum shouldn't exist.
Right? No. I'm not saying that. I hate these organizations. I think they exist solely to destabilize the planet, and they're evil globalists and want to take over the world and hoard all the money ever to themselves. Correct. And they want to own all the resources to make the whole rest of the world slaves so they can die out and live forever for whatever satanic agenda that they have. But so if Christians replace that we wouldn't be able to operate from a standpoint of global domination in the first place, because that would be completely unbiblical and unchristlike.
No, that would be again. That is, I'm going to tell you why that is silly. Because, usury, this is blamed upon Jews, but guess what? It was actually a Christian. I don't remember his name. I know I should remember his name, but I guess you can ask AI to ask you, who is the Christian who did this? So this is what you should be asking. A Christian that went to the Pope to legalize usury for Christians. That was a Christian who did it. A millionaire, billionaire, whatever. In the medieval age. So that was a Christian who did that. So we have Christians who are willing to do evil and dastardly bad things for their own self-enrichment. That has happened because people are from a fallen state, obviously. So these positions shouldn't exist. The Jews who operate those positions, a lot of them should be given the death penalty. Other ones,
I agree with that.
I guess some of them could be said to, they should. Other ones maybe shouldn't be given the death penalty, maybe prison time or whatever. But I think a large part of them are guilty of the most heinous crimes, especially the porn industry. So they should be given the death penalty. But the rest, but to say then, okay, we got rid of the Jews. Now let's put in Christians. We're not going to get rid of any of the problems because there are people, because those Christians, the person who is, the Rabbi Solomon Friedman, who is the owner of Pornhub, you know this?
Mm-hmm.
His coworker is a Christian woman. She has a cross, a necklace.
Yeah, okay. Whatever that means.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to blame the Jew, but not the Christian. Interesting how that works. But the point is that you have a Christian woman who's willing to go out and produce massive amounts of porn. So to say that Christians would be better, Christians would not be better, because Christians are also fallible.
No.
Also
okay. When I said that, I mean Christians that who you can vet them by their fruit, who walk the walk, who actually follow the commandments of Christ and would never do these things. So in essence, if Christians ran these 3-letter organizations that only exist to destroy the world and enrich themselves, then they fundamentally couldn't exist to begin with. They would like if real Christians that actually practice the faith were just replaced everybody in these organizations, they would disband.
Hold on, you just gave the game away. Those organizations that exist to destroy the world. You think putting a Christian there to destroy the world is not going to fix it? Now, wait, hold on. I understand what you're saying. I get that. Those would be true, dying-the-wool Christians, real, actual Christians to their core. I understand that. But that is, first of all, assuming that these people won't be corrupted, because people in those positions of power, even the most holiest of Christians, would be corrupted in those positions, because you have to understand how the immense power that these positions hold, that it immediately goes to your brain. So I don't think that they would be able to hold themselves in their Christian ethics. That's number one. But number two, if they actually were those types of Christians, then they would immediately dissolve those places. That immediately going back to where we got here, saying that these positions should not exist. And if you put Christians who are actual holy Christians, and the same way if you put in Jews who are actually holy Jews in those positions, these positions would be immediate. They would be like, what the hell does this position exist? I resign. This is dissolved. I decree this is dissolved. Oh, done, over. We're not doing this. So we're going back to the main point here, that these positions need to be taken care of, need to be dissolved. So this entire argument of Jews are so evil and horrible. No, Jews are
evil.
Yes, Jews are disproportionately going to end up in these high positions, high IQ, very learned people, very well connected, and some nepotism. Very easy to understand. Why are Jews in these positions? Because certain Jews, high IQ, got in there, then they're practicing, a large part of it is nepotism. Oh, you're also Jewish, so we're going to put you in these positions. But also high IQ, well-educated people who think that they are God, that they can control the world. They're satanic largely, and they are very spiritual. I find it. They're spiritual but nihilistic. It's interesting how this works, but that's why these people exist in these positions. It's not because they're Jews. It's because Jews have a higher IQ on average.
Do you think that has something to do with them also being the chosen to deliver the Mosaic Law to the world? Is it they just genetically are very, very they have a lot of educational acumen?
You could make that argument, but I would make a way better argument than that. It's evolution. And I'm not saying that to say that, oh, Jews are more evolved. I'm just saying that it's adaptation and evolution. Jews were kicked out of so many countries. We all know this. Right, 109. Actually, it's not 109. It's kind of retarded because it's actually 109 city-states. A city-state is not a fucking country, you dumbass. But it's city-states. They were basically kicked out of Hanover, so they went to Saxony. When they were kicked out of Saxony, they went to Prussia. Like, they were kicked out of city-states, you dummy. But anyway, the Jews, it's evolution in part that because they were kicked out of so many places, and they were not allowed, and this goes to the usury question. Why are Jews in usury? Why were they so particularly enamored with usury? It's very simple. Actually, Jews were not allowed to own the land. If they could not own the land, they could not have the fruits of the labor. They could not have the literal fruits and vegetables. Like, they couldn't sell those things because then that would go to somebody else. So if they can't do any of those things, guess what? Guess what remains? Banking. You know what remains? Doctors. You know what remains? Lawyers. You know what remains? Usury. Those things which you can take with you. When you learn the skill of being a doctor, you don't need to worry about leaving it anywhere. It's in your mind. You could go and do it anywhere else. That's exactly why you have so many. Is there some kind of conspiracy of Jewish doctors? No, it's because Jews were particularly forced into fields of banking, something that you could take with you, accounting, something that you can take with you when you are inevitably going to be kicked out, and you cannot own land. You cannot be a farmer. That is why you have so many Jews in these positions. Guess what? When you are not a farmer, you're not a illiterate peasant, you are a highly educated, high IQ accountant, lawyer, and doctor.
You're more valuable in society.
High positions of power, and that's something that happened throughout history. So the Jews right now, they're now benefiting from years, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, of adaptation in the mind that built them in a certain way that now they can take advantage of this. They are high IQ, high performing, and that's why they take these positions. These positions should be taken care of, should not exist. But for those who think it's some kind of great conspiracy, if it is a conspiracy, it's because of the Christians of the time. If it is a conspiracy, it's not a conspiracy. The only conspiracy that's going on is between them. They're Malthusians, they want to kill people, they want more wars, they want to use usury, they want to enrich themselves, they're hedonistic nihilists, they're satanic, they try to destroy humanity, all of those things. I'm on board with all of those things being destroyed. I'm with the Groypers on that. Groypers, I am your ally with it in this. If you want to get rid of those people, I'm your number one ally. I'm a way better, stronger ally than they think. They're like, the Groypers, I just love it. I'm more right-wing than they are. It's so funny. They say, that, first of all, none of them say that George Soros should have died in the Holocaust, so there's that. But also, they say that Aipac should have to register as a foreign lobby. And I'm like, no, we should get rid of Aipac altogether. Aipac shouldn't exist at all.
I agree with that 100%.
Like, why should we have AIPAC? That's one thing. We shouldn't have AIPAC. We shouldn't have any political action committees. We shouldn't have,
because it compromises our own politicians.
Yes, we shouldn't have any political action committees. We shouldn't allow big corporations to buy off politicians. There should be a maximum of how much any individual person can donate to any given campaign, and that goes to billionaires. That there should be what else? Millionaires and billionaires can't buy off. Political parties should not be able to donate. What is this bullshit? Here's something. I think we have basically we have tackled the Jewish question, the Talmud, and all that. We're going off to a different subject here. But this is something that I actually gonna put up on my podcast in regards to campaign finance, and this is incredibly interesting. I know you never thought about this way because it struck me like a lightning strike in my brain. Why the fuck can a billionaire buy or a political campaign or a political action committee or a political party buy a campaign in California? Why is a billionaire that donates $1 million to a political action committee he lives in New York, buying something in California? You don't live in fucking California.
Exactly.
There are voters in California.
It's because it's an agenda.
Yes. So what I am saying is that you should not be able to donate outside your district. Never, ever. You can't donate outside your district. You live in this district. These are your people. You're going to donate in your district. You can't donate anywhere else. There is a finite limit of how much you can donate. No party can donate. If the Republican Party wants to donate money too, I don't care. You cannot donate. These people can be registered Republican. The Republican Party can definitely host events and I don't know, events of what else, gatherings, whatever.
You can try to win over public sentiment, but you can't literally fund this when you don't even live there or you're not even involved.
Yes, exactly. And furthermore, I don't want any of these politicians to be able to buy national, except for president and Senate. I don't want any of these politicians to be able to buy nationwide coverage on the news. You can only buy, if you're going to buy an ad, you can buy it in your district. You can't buy it goes all over the place. You cannot buy an ad all over the place. You can only buy, so that means you can't buy an ad on CNN. CNN is all over the world. You cannot buy an ad on CNN. You can buy on your local TV station. If you don't have one, guess what? You're going to have to walk around on the district and get to know the freaking voters. How about that?
There
How about
you go, bro.
This is, and by the way, I would suggest you listen to that podcast because it has so much more. I talk about the nuclear family. Women shouldn't be voting. Men should be voting, and largely, but most men also shouldn't be voting because a lot of those men are losers and they are not educated. And
you gotta have some skills in the world.
You gotta have some skills. You gotta have some skin in the game. You gotta be able to be drafted, as well as you gotta have a freaking family. So the family unit. And if the husband dies, then I think the woman should be able to vote. So
That's
I'm
fair.
fair on it.
That's fair.
Of course, I think she should remarry, but if she doesn't want to remarry, we're not going to force her. I think there should be societal pressure, but if she withstands that pressure, she doesn't want to, it's her choice, and then at the end of the day, well, she gets to vote because she's now the head of the household. The husband died, and if you're divorced, then both of you lose the right to vote because until you remarry and whatever happens, happens. But I'm family-oriented. I am, and that's how right-wing I am, and I'm pretty sure most of these people, the Groypers, they never thought of it this way. They never thought of, they're like, okay, women shouldn't be voting, but they're also probably never thought that not all men should be voting. They never thought this way, most of them, I believe.
Because they don't think for themselves. They let Nick think for them.
Well, not all of them, but a large part of them. And I'm like, I'm more right-wing than you guys are. How are you lecturing me about Jews and Judaism and how evil people are? I know this better than you all do.
Is it just because they extrapolate out ethnic Jews with religious Jews that act as just as depraved as anybody else in the world and think that there's some sort of, they think Jewish people are some unique evil, as if all humans aren't capable of the same exact levels of depravity.
By the way, you want to go up till 9 o'clock?
I have a podcast that I got an anime podcast that I join every Sunday at 5:30. So I was gonna wrap it up shortly, but this was a phenomenal conversation. I would love to ask you a couple more questions, a couple more clarifying things about your anti-Zionist perspective. I'd also love to know, with as much credibility that you give Christians, why it, like, if you would be able to, like, if we could have like a discussion of what your reservations are about Christianity, your views on Jesus. So that would be awesome. I'd love to.
Let's go. That's exactly how I operate. Look, if there's something I don't know about, I just say I don't know about that. That's very simple.
It's not hard.
I talk about things that I want to talk about. And there's also the in regards to the Palestine thing, I made this point that there are certain people, they think that they use this as a purity test. They say that, are you for or against Palestine? What do you think about this? And I'm like, okay, you want a generic answer? I'll give you a generic answer. I don't think that children should die. I don't think that children should be starving to death. I don't think that people should be bombed. Okay, boom, there. Like, you're not looking for a generic answer. You're looking for a deep analysis. And certain people can't give you a deep analysis. So what you're actually doing here is not even a deep analysis. You're not trying to get a deep analysis, or you would go to the people who actually can give you one. You're asking the people who don't know about Palestine, who don't know about Israel, to ask them, do you align with me politically? And this is a purity test. And I really don't stand for the purity tests. So I'm not afraid of, if anyone wants to do a purity test on me, I'm like, if I don't know about it, I don't really care if you're going to think that one way or the other. I'm just going to say, I just don't know about it. It's very simple. But yeah, one final note. I can't even remember I can't remember. Things have been escaping my brain.
For sure. It's all good, brother. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time out. I would love to speak to you again. Everybody at Politodoxy, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
At Politodoxy on Instagram. You go ahead and plug whatever you got.
Okay, yeah. If you want to reach out to me, you can email me at politodoxy@gmail.com. It's political orthodoxy. That's why political orthodoxy. Nice. That's where you get orthodoxy. So, yeah, you can reach out to me on Aaron Friedman on Instagram, Politodoxy Uncensored, or Politodoxy, 3 Instagram accounts, or Politodoxy on once again Facebook and Aaron Friedman on Facebook, or Politodoxy on YouTube. And you cannot reach out to me on Politodoxy or anything on X or Twitter because Elon Musk is a bitch and he doesn't like me. So
you got banned?
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. You can post porn, but you can't have your perspective.
About a year. It didn't even tell me why. They just banned me for a year now. For about a year. Yeah.
Crazy, man. Jeez, brother.
But listen, it's the everything app, and everyone needs to be on it except anyone who has a differing opinion. And it's a grifting app. It's like, I can fix the entire app in just a few strokes, but it's a garbage dumpster.
It is. I get pissed off. I'm like, why am I even on here every time I go on? Yeah.
Everyone gets paid to post the same bullshit. I'm like, stop it. Nobody should be getting paid on a political opinion, okay? If you want to do the subscriber thing, I have no issue with that. But Instagram does the subscriber thing. That's not an issue. Why are people getting paid monetization on just posting random videos? This is retarded, okay? What you should do is stop with the monetization, let people post, and that's about it. Because everyone is ripping off each other, and it doesn't work. It just It's all garbage. It's complete and total garbage. People are getting paid for having the most heinous, horrible opinions. Congratulations. That's exactly what we needed in this society. Like, you want to have a good, horrible opinion? Good for you. But I don't see why you should get paid for it. I really don't. Like, if you want to get paid for it, make it subscriber. Okay, you're gonna get paid for your horrible opinion. I'm fine with that. If people want to pay, I don't see why institutions should do that.
That's very valid. Well, thank you so much for the very, very wonderful conversation. I will be reaching out to you again, and I would love to do another show with you.
Excellent. All right, no problem,
brother. Have a wonderful night. I'll talk to you soon.
You gather all your questions. I'll be happy to answer. And by the way, just so, of course, it's gonna fall down. Let's Get Biblical with Rabbi Tovia Singer. This, by the way, if you any questions that you need more, this will probably have it. Like, this basically compiles almost all a majority of the arguments that Judaism has against Christianity, and it's damning. I mean, it will, if nothing else, if it doesn't convince you of Judaism, it will at least make you stronger in your Christianity.
Got it. Awesome. For sure. I'll look into it for sure, brother. Appreciate you, bro.
All right. Enjoy.
You too.
Now that I got your attention, y'all boys better listen to all of these words. Y'all better get right with our father, she gon' die with the rest of the herd. It don't matter if you come from the street or you stay in the country or born